we've got ourselves another Artisan Guild miniature. This one's at 72 mil scale. It's a nice thing about the digital prints is you can print them kind of whatever size or scale you want them to be. Thing that's going to be different, and I talked about this a couple of times, I was doing this around about this time last year. I was doing all kinds of demos on contrast paints because, well, let's see, what's today, the 12th? I think it was 3 days ago last year that these first hit the market and all kinds of hilarity ensued. It was kind of wild, and I did several different demos on how to use these, not the GW way, because GW says at $8 a pop, by all means go through these as fast as you possibly can by just slapping them all over the place. We're going to do something just a wee bit different for that. Now you see these little trays up here, and I'm sure I'm going to have to show these several times during the course of this. Oh, it is just a little plastic watercolor tray, and if I can find the original tray that these go to, here we go. This is one of these little trays right here. And as we open this up, you can see all those little slots right there. Well, this goes right in there. And as you can see, these are all designed to be replaceable. Okay, so this gets too dirty, too gummed up, whatever. You get rid of it, you throw it away. And I got tons of these on Amazon. They were pennies on the dollar. I mean, heck, you could use this as your palette if you wanted to for it. And I'm just going to keep this thing right in here and just leave this at my side. We'll still be using our number 8 round craft brushes, possibly even, let's get, boom, there we go. Yeah, number 12 round. Now the idea about putting these in the cups, well, I've seen so many of these spilled all over the place. And again, at $8 a pop, decorating your table that way, that's an expensive way to decorate your table and less great way to have your miniatures actually painted. Now you see these two guys over here. We will eventually be adding more colors to this, but I did want you to see the usual off-whites from Reaper here. So Maggot White, Maiden Flesh. We're probably going to be tossing in some of the other Pro Acryls. Something along the lines of Pale Bright Green. Oh, what the heck, I'll just throw it out there right now. Let's just throw it out there, have it on the palette here. We'll toss him over there because that's where he lives. Again, we'll throw out some more colors as time goes on. But what I wanted to emphasize is that these can be mixed together. So when I first got these, basically I got, was it 11 of them, 12 of them? Because again, $8 a piece. But where's my So I was trying to basically replicate this. So these two things essentially serve a lot of the same purposes. And you've seen me using the liner paints. These were just liner paints in name, well, in form, not in name. Because in Europe and in Australia, they were having a tough time getting a hold of these, not having a tough time getting a hold of those. So I was trying to find equivalents to those. And wherever the Wildwood is, which is right here, pretty much this equivalent right there. The blue liner, if I can locate you, there we go. There's another equivalent. So I looked through all these and I said, well, okay, what are the ones that I really think I could actually use? And the ones that look the closest to stuff like the liner paints and everything else, boom, use those. Now you just saw in a recent video that I did for the Patreon page, well, if you are patrons, using Green Stuff World Intensity inks, which are basically a lot like these, only a lot less price. And the Pro Acryl transparent paints are also a bit like these, just not quite so liquid. And oh, you don't need to also use that super expensive contrast medium either. What we're going to do is take some of this Wildwood here, get this out on the palette, and you can see it's nicely contained. We're going to take some of that Leviathan blue. We're going to go over here, and we're going to start to get some colors on her base. And I'm even going to, yes, I am going to use some water on this, especially down here where you've got stuff like tree bark. This is super absorbent. It's wood, it's tree bark, it's sand, it's gravel. That's absorbent. And we'll just let that all absorb in there. I'm not going to really fret terribly much about painting this part about it because, well, we're going to have lots of foliage and flock and everything else, sort of like the, if you remember the, was it the owlbear family, right, from Dark Sword? This will be sort of similar. Also, Nessie in the house. Actually, I saw your most recent post there of the object source lighting there on what's his name's lightsaber, so that was very cool. Very cool to see. And also, Nessie is a fellow streamer, so be sure to give Nessie a follow because Nessie knows. I mean, Nessie just knows. And it's Megan also in the house. Yeah, well, finally, for a change, we're just not messaging back and forth in a chat. I'm actually, like, here, able to talk and paint and do stuff. It's been just it's been a weird couple of weeks, but let's see. The other night, I wanted to do a live session, and then YouTube said, no. We're going to make a 2-hour upload, take 3.5 hours. So, yeah, there was no soup for me. Hey, how are you doing? It's the Alpha Distin. The Alpha Distin. I think if I did not get that right, just let me know. Just let me know. Now, what's today? It is Friday, right? I get confused. The plan, anyway, is for tomorrow to do another extravaganza. The intended topic is a you-know-what ton of Darksword miniatures, as in 9 of them. Because I need to start painting the figures from the Muses of Delphi, and there's 9 of them. So we can do some damage on those and say, what would you say about a 7, 8 hour, 9 hour stream, something like that, depending. Again, that's the plan for tomorrow. And yes, this is a bark and branch base. And this is all just, look at this, I'm using a bunch of different contrast colors here, Leviathan blue, or digging into a little bit of the Gore Grunta fur that's over here. That's Snakebite leather over there. Just switching and changing and doing all kinds of stuff here. More Leviathan blue over here. Oh, let's see. Chainsaw, Happy Gerbil. Let's see, I can get those easily. Good. Well, that was the whole mindset behind getting them, because I had no purpose for them, for me anyways. But people, well, they all wanted to know. They said, so Jim, what are you doing with contrast paints? And I said, I don't know. And they said, but you have to, because we can get those. And I said, okay. And that's when I basically found the ones that replicated what I basically do most with. At the time, I don't think the transparents really were a thing at the time. I think they came out a little bit later. Oh, the other thing too is I like to mix those with whatever we have of these. What's this one called here? Athonian Camo Shade. Yeah, actually, I've got those here. I'll show you in a second. Actually, I'm just going to drop my last little bit of stuff on here. Then I'm going to just let that sit there for a second so that can dry. So here I'm just letting that camo shade kind of mix with the contrast paints. All I'm looking to do is just get some color on that. My old bark and branch method of basing. Alright, so now you guys can just sit here and dry like nice contrast paint. You just stay over there and do your thing. Let's see, the Alpha Distin is mixing oils into droppers. Yeah, well, there's definitely going to be some oil videos coming for sure. Oh boy, this is going to be interesting. to try and get under the camera here, so be patient. There we go. So look at that. So that big giant diorama base, that was actually one of the Patreon tutorials. But you see all those figures on there? Those are all muses of Delphi A. We got Grundy in the house with lots of emotes. I'm still waiting for some of my emotes to get approved though, which is really starting to become irritating. So here's a few of them. Now these, I'm just going to have to stick them on my paint jars and just paint these separately because, you know, big freaking gigantic diorama base. Kiwis in the house, how are you doing? Kiwis and Megan, what do you know? Okay, so as this dries, figure. Take a look at the references to the lower right and lower left over there. I'm going to try and do some of those tattoo designs. I'll try and do them here, maybe on the face, but even here on the inside of the clothes, I'm just going to, it's a big open space. I'm going to see, you know what, can I play with something there? Not sure just what of those two patterns or three, I'm going to be able to replicate, but, you know, we'll see what happens. Okay. Now, as this dries, we are going to go back into our contrast paints here, and I'm going to start back this way. Again, we're going to be mixing a lot of different colors here, just letting them flow, letting them do their thing. So there's some of your wildwood right there. There's some of the snakebite leather. There's some of the, what is this one called? Fire Slayer Flesh, which, fun story about that. First time I used it, I didn't know what the heck the thing was called. I thought it said Fire Slayer or Fry Slayer Flesh, which sounded really weird to me, but I didn't know. And oh my gosh, there were some people that really got their undies in a bunch over that. That was, so then it just became a thing. We just called it Fire Slayer Flesh because it seemed to, or Fry Slayer Flesh, because it really seemed to bug people. They just really couldn't deal with it, so we just kept hitting them with it since they couldn't deal with it. Again, just gonna let that sink in there like it does, doing its thing. But mixing all the while, you know what, here's a little bit of this Vulpes pink. Because, hey, you know, metals, what do you need for metals? You need pink. Nessie knows. Nessie knows that. Oh, Greg the Salt Miner. Yes, there's definitely going to be more oils. Probably some more oils on Artisan Guild figures, too. Just going to grab some of this over here, push it up here. What else do we got? If there's one man I trust with a tattoo machine, it would be you. Yes, sirree. Just think Book of Wappel tattoos. They're all like facial tattoos, of course, because you just want people to really spread that knowledge. And what better way than to have the Book of Wappel tattooed on your face very prominently. Oh, what do we got? Ain't no stream a day, Dr. Tentacle. How's it going? Yeah, it's going to be, oh my goodness. Heck, we may use a whole bunch of different things. I mean, if it's going to be 7, 8, 9-ish hours long, maybe I fool around with the contrast paints tomorrow too. And just maybe try some other things, and we do a little, we compare and contrast. Oh, there's a pun. Yeah, baby. So we got like pink on this side, and then we've got the like Leviathan blue on that side. It's madness. It's everything is just going crazy. We don't care. I think this is more of that gore grunter fur. I'm also going to now hit it with some of the snake bite leather, give it a little bit of that greenish yellow. Just going to make sure all this stuff kind of blends together. How different is this than stuff that we were doing with, say, I don't know, the liner paints?
Who
who enters my domain. It is Studio J7. Thank you so much for the raid, and we'll welcome them in right as we're doing all of our madcap insanity right here. But if you're not following Studio J7, following is a good idea, because again, another really fun streamer that does fun stuff. See, look at that. We just mixed like 3 different contrast paints together. Quite literally, the Vulpes pink with some other stuff. Kind of turning that into a bit of a flesh tone here. And once I get done with this particular little thing here, we will show the new folks what it is that we are up to. Let's see, we've got Gridlock 6 in the house.
Little hobbits, spark my ganja.
Thank you so much for the follow, Momo Chockley. That actually is a very fun screen name there. So what we are doing are actually employing contrast paints. It just occurred to me when I did the Green Stuff World Intensity Inks thing. I said, you know what? I really didn't show people anything with the contrast paints like I'd done, well, almost a year ago at this time. Oh, it's Caramel Raptor. How are you doing? And let's see. Oh, thank you very much. Let's see. Wappelville. That is what we call it, baby. So what I'm doing here is just setting things up. Just getting things all set up here with my initial glazes of contrast paint. So this is something that I talked about early on here. Now, again, almost a year ago, 3 days from now, I was trying to find equivalents of the Reaper liner paints, because what you just saw me do there is a lot like what I did with the liner paints. And I found about a dozen of them. Leviathan Blue was a good equivalent to the blue liner, and then Snakebite Leather was a nice equivalent to this liner paint. And I'm just going to set these aside so I can keep showing these to people. The Wildwood was a really good complement to brown liner, wherever I've got that. Here it is. And I used all those liner paints to do basically what you've just seen me do right here. And look at got some bluish tints here, some yellowish green, reddish brown. We put purple over here. And then on the other side we had the Leviathan Blue going. Again, our bark and branch method. And if you're wondering where did the miniature come from, it is from Artisan Guild. This is another one that we did. We did this one in oils before. And I'm hoping to add this jungle foliage. Not sure if I can do that all in this one stream, but we'll give it a shot. And I'll show you a couple of other Artisan Guilds. So this is actually me. This is Wappelius Spellbrush. You can see this is another live session that I did. It had everything. OSL, fluorescent paints, freehand. It had all of it. So we'll go back to our original scene right here. And you'll see these 2 colors right over here. These are also from Reaper. They're just off-white, right? Oh, I was just finishing up. Well, thank you very much. It's appreciated. I'm just having some fun here. I realized that it's been almost a year since I started using those contrast paints, because everybody wanted to know what the heck can you do with these things. And GW obviously just says, well, you just use them like this. You slap them over the whole thing, and that's it. Let's see, Grundia, I'm sure this gets asked a lot, but do you have a preferred oil paint for miniatures? Well, it's just the Winsor Newtons. Now the sets like this come with the Wintons, but then you can fill it in with regular Winsor Newton oils. I've got basically, everything that's in the tray here. I've kind of restocked it with the regular Winsor Newtons. They have served me oh so well. I mean, they have really done a princely job. Now, brushes here. So this is, again, it's a larger version of my craft brush, but look at what this can do. So you got that really nice, basically filbert brush shape. Okay, looks a bit like this, but there's advantage. Advantage number 1, longer bristles. See, this is all kind of stiff. Look at that. That's got some nice give to it. Oh, we have a rabbit boy. How are you doing? Oh, let's see. If it's been a year since the contrast paints came out, then it's a year since you got your Night's Watch. Aha. Okay, but look at this. Boom. Oh, let's just grab some paint here and let's do something like that. So you can see we do that, but then that nice little thin line, or we do a combination of both. So again, advantage brush. And let's review, because we had a whole bunch of new people come in here. So these little containers that you see up there, they're actually meant for a watercolor palette like this. Let's get this thing open if I can. Under the camera. And these are just little plastic inserts. And you can get these by the hundreds on Amazon. Dirt cheap. Let's see, Grundy, good to know. Already owns what? So Winsor Newton. I would say ditch the Optilung, go for the oil brushers, because I love me the oil brushers. The only reason why I started mixing my own oil stuff.
Little hobbits, spark my ganja.
Thank you so much, Lars all day, and Mr. Glav for the follow. Boy, that was like simultaneous. That was like simultaneous follows. Let's see. Never thought about.
Little hobbits, spark my ganja.
Ooh, I anticipated the Mr. Glav follow. How's that? So again, you could use this in theory for your miniature paints too, but that's what they're for. And again, they're dirt freaking cheap, and you know, these guys here, they just stay out of the way, so you don't have an 8-hour spill on your table. But thanks again, Mr. Glav. What we are going to do now that this says dried enough, I'm going to take some of our Leviathan blue over here. I'm actually going to take some of that. That is some of the pale kind of mint green there. Look at this. Look at what we're doing. We're making a whole new color, except one that is kind of semi-translucent. Let's paint ourselves some rocks here. And these rocks, again, are just tree bark. So this is probably something that folks don't do a whole bunch with the contrast paints, is mixing with regular paints, because you can do that. And then you get to do some really nifty things. Oh, like this. That is probably about 70-ish% contrast paint. But it's doing something you usually don't see contrast paint do. Oh, look, we can even let that mix with some of the existing paint there. This is so much fun. It's been so long, I completely freaking forgot about this. Oh, let's see. Just, you know, use the oil brush as well. Yeah, I made my own oil paints because at Adepticon, to do my oil painting class, I would have needed 100, actually, more like 120 of them. And I said, well, that's not going to happen. But I had the Winsor Newton paint, and I had the special sauce of the white spirits, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to make my own. And I got those little jars. And then I was so happy to have those little jars, which were way easier to get on camera. I just started using those. Now there is this my silver over here? Aha! So, oil brushers. They're metal paints, like they're aluminum and they're steel. These are way better than anything you can get from Winsor Newton as far as metallic paints go. So this is going to be for an oil paint true metallic metal exercise. Yes, you heard that. Oils and true metallic metals, as we welcome Pun Expected and Droxer. Let's see, do you have a video on how to create your oil paint mixes? I have a couple of videos on that. They're on the Patreon page, but it's a fairly simple process. The reason I made the videos was less to show them how it was done, but it was basically a discussion on each of the colors. So, cadmium yellow. I said, okay, guys, look at this. Look at how much of the white spirits it takes to thin this down. Then we went on to the phthalo green. I said, look at how this is so translucent in comparison to the cadmium. So it did show them how to mix the oils into the containers, but really that could have been a 2-minute video. The whole rest of the video is all about again, me talking about each color and the properties of each color and how I was going to eventually use that color in regular painting videos. So this looks so light already. That is not light. Look at it sitting on the palette here. That's light. That ain't light. Let's see. Nessie has finally been waiting to have oil brushes metals. Yeah, that's I'm really looking forward to that. I've actually the one I wanted to try it on was and I can never remember what the heck it's called, but it's Creature Caster. It's the big Shaggoth guy, the big dragon ogre. I mean, he's like the freaking huge dragon ogre. I was wanting to try that because he's got a lot of metal on him. And I thought, okay, it'd be fun to do TMM on him, but it would be even more fun to do TMM in oils. So, start to move some of this over here. This is still, it's still wet, which means I can still move paint around on this. So look at that. Here's the other thing too. See how that just changed color right there? That's because it hit the snakebite leather, which was still drying. Doesn't this look a little bit like oil painting? Suddenly, contrast paint like oils. Big old brush, moving fast. Moving real fast. Not giving it a chance to dry on me here. I'm going to keep moving fast. Now I'm going to actually grab some of that maiden flesh here. Look at this, a whole different, this contrast paint with one extra color in it. That's all it is. That is all this is. Let's see. Oh, Zen for one in the house and Beef in the hole. How are you doing? How are you doing? I guess Kathy, you were keeping Kathy company during her live session, and again, she usually is doing hers from 2 until 5 Central Time. Was that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday? Look at this here. Oh, look at that. Again, contrast paint +1. Literally, one freaking color added to contrast paint. And because we used all these different contrast paints, right? We weren't just using one. We were using 5 or 6 of them as we start to add these lighter, somewhat less transparent tones. It starts to change. Look at how much lighter this looks, but yet we're wet blending. It's like it's oils. It's oils, but not oils. And oh look, there's still some wet contrast paint that I can blend in here. It all happens. It's like magic, only it's not magic. It's all just simple. The ideas behind this, nothing complicated. I'm hoping at some point we have Zulamandi. How are you doing? Hopefully there'll be some readings from the Book of Wappel tonight. And oh yeah, there are, for the new folks in here that may not know, there's the emotes. It was a chat reward things, right? There's some new chat reward things that might be worth checking out. We've got readings from the Book of Wappel. We now have the one true brush. We can all worship the one true brush together. Again, grabbing some of that. Right here we got snakebite leather.
Hello, little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
Thank you for the follow, Andy1295. It is appreciated. Gandalf appreciates it too. Here, let's start to work in some lighter tones here in our metals real quick. Get working up with a big old brush, working fast. Not really giving that paint a total chance to dry. We want to keep working that. Let's mess with our inside of our cape right here. So what are we going to do? We're going to take some of that gold grunt of fur. Going to mix a little bit of our maiden flesh with that. And does it look at how That is semi-translucent. That is what we're looking for. We can darken that down. Here, let's get a little bit of pink going. There we go. Look at this. This is why when people ask, what about those water-soluble oils? I say, you got them. Do you have contrast paint? Do you have acrylic paint of any type? Yeah, I do. I said, well, you got fast-drying oil paints. Because, well, this is pretty much the same thing we'd be doing with oil paints. Let's mix some. Look at this. We're wet blending, just like if that was oils. Pushing this paint around, having fun, making things go quickly. What the heck? Let's think about some of this as sort of an initial skin tone here. All the while, we've got our contrast paint handy to mix back in there. There we go. It's nice to be able to sort of work your way into a skin tone. As you can see, there's really not a base coat per se. Oh, let me see. Oh, thanks, Zuliman. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been almost a year, quite literally almost a year since I first started to do the crazy stuff with the contrast paint. So, and this was first and foremost among some of those crazy things that I was doing with the contrast paint. Here, let's get her feet going there. Let's do something here metal-wise. We're going to take some of that maggot white. It's like an off-white blue. Mix it with our Leviathan blue to create basically just a blue. And it's a nice dark blue. It is not by any stretch of the imagination a light color. I'm not quite sure what you would call this sort of weapon here, but it's interesting to say the least. Ooh, let's hit these guys up here too. We can take some of that away. Real quick like. Oh, add some of that down here too. Again, as long as I've got some of that contrast paint that's still wet, and grab some of that and mix it into this. Change it around just like it's oils. Heck, if you got contrast paint, you got fast drying oils. How does that sound? Now, you also have to be kind of willing to do crazy stuff like this, but hey. Now back to that sort of pale green here. Let's see if we can lighten up some of our rocks here. Nessie knows it's madness. Oh, and thanks, Grundy. Yeah, that's the only one that's approved so far. For whatever reason, my One True brush and the Painting Pyramid emotes, it has not approved those. I don't know why. I have no clue. Oh, let's see. A throwing glaive. Yeah, it's, well, I actually have seen something like this. It was a game that, well, it was invented in the 1970s and it never really caught on. I don't even know if I should say the name of it here because it would just sound weird in today's environment. But let's just say, imagine something like this in plastic. It quite literally was like this, and there was actually more hooks on it. These things, it was almost like a combination of lawn darts and frisbees. That was basically what it was. And I can kind of imagine now the liability on that alone. Yeah. Now, if we were kids, it would have taken about 10 minutes of us playing with those before somebody was just going to be getting coloring books for Christmas for the rest of their lives. Because, yeah, that would have... First thing we would have done is throw those at each other's heads. So again, we're creeping in a little bit more of that pale green. Look at what happens here. That starts to emerge a little bit more. Let me go to my camera controls here and let me see. We can add a little brightness to that now. There we go. And I'm just going to double check. I think that's all good too. I was just doing recording a basing video, so the camera's in a little different place now than it was for the last, oh gosh, many hours that I was recording. So if you're wondering what we were doing, here, let's show some of these. So yeah, this was a new basing tutorial here. So we're trying to get some jungle themed bases. Let me move that back. There you go. Using epoxy sculpt, using some Sculpey, more epoxy Sculpey. So that I'm going to be filming the next part of this video later tonight after this is over. The oxide paste, Sculpey, epoxy sculpt, all kinds of fun stuff for very nifty bases. Now that's getting to be a lot of green over there, so let's work in a little bit of our Maiden Flesh 2. Change that around. There we go. Yeah, nice feathered brush stroke, nice and light, just caressing the brush across that surface. Start to think about some of these here. Getting a little bit of our non-metallic metals on those. Other side. Oh, let's see. I think the technical name is called a spinny twirl and killy. I like that. Actually, oh, see, I like that idea. That is very cool. That is a very cool idea. Let's see. Nessie needs to go grab some more of that maggot flesh. Yeah, it's a really nifty off-white, and it just has that little hint of blue to it. It's amazing. So this stuff starts to, look at that. Big old brush here. Again, working fast. Working nice and fast. Maybe even hit this a little bit. Start to bring out some of the fur texture. Because Nessie knows the first chapter in the first book of Wappel, verse 1. Oh, we'll just give you a sample reading here. How does that sound? Just give you a sample reading. Boom. If a color goes somewhere, it must go everywhere. From the sacred, eternal text of Wappelville. That's a bonus reading for you right there. I do believe that Cheering and Bits can provide more readings. Oh, look at this. Look at that. Fur starts to come out some more. Again, still working with that big old brush. Oh, Hero for Hire says it's a type of glaive weapon. And Nessie knows. He has read his book of Wappel. He's heard many readings from the book of Wappel over the years. And you get those on every single tutorial video. Because that right there is, again, sacred text written before time itself. Let's bring out some more of our lighter fur colors here. We'll see what we want to do on this. Do we want to give it more of a greenish tone? I don't know. I did have some of the contrast. What was the green one? Oh gosh, it was actually a really bright one too. I was like warp lightning green, and it was a contrast paint too. I think it was warp lightning green or something like that, or warp stone green. One of those two. It was warp lightning green or warp stone, which kind of, it's potato at that point. What does it really matter? Let's get our little skulls down here. So let's grab, snakebite leather, kind of a yellowish green. And we're still thinking about this being more of a jungle type of a theme, so we want our skulls to be relatively dark, but it's the same idea. let a little bit of that snakebite leather work its way into here. That contrast paint is still wet. I can still mix it. This is why I'm saying it's like water-soluble oils. Look at this. It's still wet there. I can still mix all this stuff. I can still mix over here too. And Nessie knows I'd be doing the exact same thing. If this were oil paint, I'd pretty much be doing a very similar thing to what I am right here. Let's get some more of that snakebite leather working into this. Just cause. I suppose here now that the side advantage is that this will be, it'll be nice and dry. If I want to do tattoos or something like that, well, we can do those later as well. Might do some kind of, now I'm starting to see maybe some kind of reddish hair could be fun on this. Again, letting that mix. We can still use our contrast paint as a glaze afterwards too. This is another way of kind of doing that limited palette exercise, which I'm always going to hate just that term of limited palette. It's not a limited palette. It's just, you know, you don't have a ton of colors on the palette, but you are mixing them in a multitude of ways. Now look, we're just going to grab some of that lighter maiden flag. I'm just going to start to throw this on these skulls, and it's going to mix just like oils, and it's also going to get tinted because it's going to pick up some of that snakebite. Actually, that's a bit of flash. We'll just get rid of that. There we go. See, it doesn't take much. Doesn't take very much. Let's think about what's going to happen on the strappings here on this. That's the snakebite leather. Let's work some of that into here too. Let's work some of that up into here. Makes a nice little change. Again, we're just working fast, working rough. You can also, we can use something besides just those. Well, I'm going to look for, okay, you've seen me use this a bunch of times here. Some of our burnt sienna. So, but this has got a little more opacity to it. Let's throw it over here. Right there. Let's combine that with some of that Vulpes pink and see what we, oh, look at that. There's a nice bright red there. Kind of an orangey red. Let's get that into her here. Just for fun. Okay. There we go. And see, we can make some modifications along the way. And then that would be nice in here as well. Get some of my maiden flesh into this. And we're going to do some more mixing. Why not? Oh, let's see. Oh, Gurn Ethereal, how are you doing? Oh, just put away your oil colors, but a bit of watching the real master. Well, thank you very much for, you're sort of getting a little bit of oils here. It's kind of like oils. It's just a little bit different because this will all be dry. However, brush, blend, but it's just contrast paint. That's all it is, with just a couple of other colors. I have noticed that the Reaper and the Pro Acryls, they do work better for this than, say, using some of the GW opaque colors, but I have done that in the past, so it is possible. These just work a little bit better. So see how we're getting a nice quickie blend right here. Let's go with a little bit more of our, make that even more of a pinkish color here. There we go. Again, keep working with the big old brushes. Working fast, big brushes. Let it mix, let it blend. Face here. Almost forgot about the arm and the hand. Gonna throw some of this on these spears here. Those are some hefty spears. There's some very hefty spears. All the while working with a number 12 craft brush that costs, about 18 cents, as we got Al Capone in the house. So this is an Artisan Guild figure. It's printed at 72 millimeter scale. And we're actually using contrast paints here right now. So up in these containers here, you see contrast paints. Down here, you got a couple of simple Reaper off-white colors. And we're just kind of showing how to use those in a way that GW doesn't really want you to know about, because, well, this way you don't really need a whole bunch of those contrast paints. You only need a few of them, and you certainly don't need to splatter an entire $8 bottle that just covered 10 Space Marines. We're also kind of showing that some semi-oil blending style techniques here. But again, contrast paints, feathered brush strokes. Look at that. Nice open leathery surface. Go back to some of the darker contrast paint here. Let that mix together. Look at that nice little mix right there. And eventually I'll start to zoom in a little bit more here. I'm just trying to show more of the entire figure so that you can see that.
Hello, little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
Who do we welcome in? We welcome in the Calisandra. How are you doing? And the cosplaying kitten. So, yes, another streamer that you need to follow. That's Cosplaying Kitten, because you'll get miniatures, you'll get art, and you'll get cosplay, because Cosplaying Kitten. So definitely give her a follow too. So this is 72 mil. This is one of those Artisan Guild figures. So I think, this one was printed at your regular kind of 28 mil scale. So again, Artisan Guild, but this one 72, and somewhere not too far away. Aha. Okay. Look at this. I've got a whole box of these guys. So, and we're talking about different scales, right? So here's one printed at around 72, and that one printed at 28. These are going to be future. Oh, look at this. There's that same figure printed in more like 30 to 35 millimeter scale. Let's show her next to the 72. So I'm sure I'm going to be doing a little demo on this one as well. But there are lots of, that's the nice thing about Artisan Guild, is that when you get those files, you can print them whatever size you want. Oh, let's see. Oh, I'm just looking around, making sure I'm caught up on the chat. So once again, we're going to get some of the snakebite leather into this. That's just pretty much straight up snakebite leather, but you can see we're not using it in a very watery fashion. We're using it more, just kind of brushing that right on. Now, we don't always have to just use the big old number 12. We can go to something smaller. We can go to one of our number 8 rounds here. And let's see if we've got ourselves a decent, Let's go into our skin tones again here. See what we can do here. We'll lighten these up, because if I want to do those tattoos, I'm going to need some lighter skin tone here. Working fast, but because that you've got that contrast paint in there, it's basically a semi-translucent paint. And we're also going to work in some of our greens and pinks into the skin tone. Broken Bones works as, what happens if you don't pay your exorcist? You'll get repossessed. Oh, it's going to be, it's Pun Wars. Oh, geez, what was the one last night? There was a really good one last night. But I can't remember what it was. And it's just one of those things where it's right on the tip of my addled brain, but I can't quite remember what it was. So here we go. See, it starts to, it's like we're sculpting with paint. Things start to emerge, but it's not that sort of classic layering up sort of thing. This is more like what we would do with oils. Let's see. Oh, feet. Let's not forget the feet. There's still actually wet contrast paint down on those feet there, which is hilarious. Yeah, because I just ran across it right there. Haha. Alright, back into our lighter skin tone here. Working across the entire figure at once here. It's really important not to just get locked in on one area. Gotta keep moving around. Let's grab a touch of that pink. Look at that. That's a little bit of that Vulpes pink there. Lighten up a touch. And that typically goes here. Starting to think about tinting the skin where maybe blood vessels are closer to the surface. On hands. This is where it starts to really take shape. And also be really nifty when it comes time to, when we start adding the greens to the skin tones, becomes more of a complement. And if I can find so again, you've got in this one here, you've got your greens down in the shadow areas. Now I think I can zoom in just a touch here. I'll give it, boom, one zoom in. Let's make sure we've got ourselves some good focus for you, like that. Al Capone asks, how would you compare the contrast to the Reaper or Primer, the Pro Acryl Transparents? Those other two are vastly more preferable than the contrast paints. First of all, they crush it on price. Literally, here, let me see if I can find okay. So we've got, how much is in here? There's 18 milliliters. That's 22. You could buy 2.5 of these for one of these. So, and since this does a better job because this will thin with water, and this, another reason I'm mixing it with paint is because, well, Oh, let's see, and I just want to see, Gurnatherial asked if I print the miniatures myself. Right now, I can't because I have 2 printers here. I just can't get any of the stuff to make the printers work. Like, I just finally got the 90% alcohol a week or 2 ago, and I cannot get the FDM, the spools yet. They keep saying available June 3rd, available June 9th, in stock June 20th, in stock July 47th. So I would love to be able to print my stuff, but I can't because I can't get any of the stuff. It's so disappointing. Let's see. I know that you've used them both for a bit. Yeah, almost a year. Let's see. I have to try that next. Well, and the other thing is, as soon as you say, well, you can only use it with this, that's when I start to move away from that particular product because, what's the other one? There's the those color shift things. Well, no, you really only use those in an airbrush. As soon as you tell me you can only use them with glossy black primer in an airbrush, I say, well, that's kind of not so useful. So I'm going to shy away from that. Now here again, we got some of that snakebite leather. We're mixing some of our maiden flesh in with that. And then we start to find ourselves some light tones in the skin, or lighter tones. And then we're going to go back in and we will, like I said, we're going to probably use some of the Leviathan blue, maybe. Actually, I actually have a green. Never mind. Yeah, let's get some lighter tones in the face here. Just like I keep saying, because there's a little bit of translucency to those contrast paints, we're also getting a bit of translucency here too. Oh, let me see. Damiel, how's it going? And Bethany. And yes, you are safe because there is no object source lighting here. I cannot promise such safety on, well, Saturday as in tomorrow, because tomorrow is supposed to be another one of the Saturday marathons. I guess we'll just have to call it that. Or paint-a-thons. Oh, maybe that's better. Saturday paint-a-thon. How does that sound for a weekly thing? Well, see how that skin tone? Look at that. Remember what it looked like initially, and now it's starting to look very, very different. I'm just going to march across the entire figure this way. Doing the hair, doing the weapons, the cloak. And then we'll swing back around, hopefully, and get to the tattoos. I think I'm going to maybe do the foliage. I don't know if I actually can do a late night episode tonight. I don't know. But I don't know if we'll get to the foliage tonight. That might be a little bit much to try and squeeze in. However, you can see the process doesn't take super long. You know what? Let's get a little bit more of that pink. That's a little bit of that burnt sienna from Pro Acrylic. It also makes it a little more opaque. There we go. Continuing to work fast, working in broad brush strokes here. Did I get the other side? I knew I was forgetting something. I was forgetting something. Oh, let's see. You could do another set of flaming skulls. Oh, it's Saturday morning. Yeah, okay, Saturday morning. It makes sense. Oh, Patty Kane. Let's see. Psyched to be part of your Patreon. Really excited to start watching the videos. Well, thank you so much for joining that. And I don't know if you saw, at some point, oh gosh, whenever I can get this rendered and posted. So this is going to be the next basing video here on the Patreon page. So Sculpey, you've seen that before, and Epoxy Sculpt.
Hello, little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
Oh, thank you so much for the follow, Warrior Streak, as we're just showing some bases that we did in literally a tutorial I was just filming earlier today. So this is actually made just leftover bits of Sculpey right there. Turn that into a base.
Hello, little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
Oh, hello, Mig. How are you doing? Thanks so much for the follow. I'm just showing off some new bases here. Some new jungle theme bases. And for those of you, this actually is on my YouTube channel right now. But see that base right there for Snake Man? This is, again, one of the guys that we painted in a previous session. But see that base? That's ultimately what we're after. Let's go back to our... And yet most people figure, well, you can't use contrast paints on a wet palette. Well, I'm doing that right now because I got the contrast paints sitting up there in their handy little containers. Okay, let's do some... Yeah, that just... It feels like I'm using oil paints right now, which is freaking hilarious. Here, let's get a little bit more of our lighter skin tones into her face. More on the arms. And I won't go too far into this before I'm going to move around, maybe do things like the loincloth and other areas. Again, just letting that. It's not a wet blend right there. It's just because the contrast paints have that little bit of transparency to them. We let that underlayer show through, and that's what's important to think about when you're using the contrast paints like this. Think about that secondary layer. Now that's some of the, I think it's the Gore Grunta fur mixed with the off-white, and now look at that nice rich kind of a reddish color, which is also potentially handy here for some hair. Get to the other side of this. I'm not going to forget my burnt sienna either. And what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to try and see if I can't find another one of those little watercolor containers and use, let's see, what's this one called again? What is that called? Oh, Iandin Yellow. See if I can find another one of my little containers here. Get some of that tossed in there. So we got a little container. And do a little pour. That's about all I'm going to need. And now it just lives there on the palette. This gets closed, goes away, so it doesn't get spilled. Now we can add some yellow into our lighter reds here. Now this is the other thing. Now the Reaper clear and liner paints, those are going to be the least glossy, as in like no gloss whatsoever. The transparent paints from Pro Acryl, they're pretty darn flat as well. The contrast paints, however, those are going to have a little bit of a gloss effect on them. But if you're looking for videos on all the stuff that I'm talking about, they're on the YouTube channel. I think I've got a Sister of Battle here. Where did she go? She's around somewhere. Aha! So this was painted just like we're painting this one. This was painted with the contrast paints, doing the same exact thing that we're doing now. Just starting to bring out some of these lighter tones. And again, that's got a little bit more of a yellow flavor to it because we added in the Iandin. And we're talking about some greens, right? So let's take this Iandin. There's Leviathan blue. Oh, look, we have yellow blue number 4, otherwise known as Leviathan blue, mixed with a yellow. So now we get greens. Now we get ourselves a nice little green, which, when mixed with our skin tone, it's going to set this up so you can see that start to work its way into our skin tones here. Over here. Again, it's going to be semi-translucent. I can even take my finger and wipe some of the excess away. Get a little touch of our green into there. It starts to have a little bit of that, was that the Vallejo look, right? Or a Boris, what's his name? Frazetta, that's the look. Vallejo, what am I talking about? Oh, let's see. And this he asks, is it 600 hours in the Patreon page? You know what? I keep saying it's closer to, it's getting to 500. It might actually have already passed 600. It might actually be getting close to 700. Because when I think about just the painting pyramid videos alone, there's 53 times that, there's 5,300 minutes of video just there. And that's from 7 years ago. I've been adding videos to that practically every other day for what, the last 3 years almost. So yeah, there's a few vids. Frazetta, that's it. The Verdecchio style. Uses of greens and blues. Guernsey Tri Oils, it's honestly a ton of fun. Let's see, Pedican. I just started painting and I figured I might as well be bad with oils as well as acrylic. Oh, well, thank you very much, Pedican. I appreciate that. Now, we were talking about the glazeability, right, of your... Well, let's do something like that. Here's some of the Leviathan blue. There's going to be some of our yellow. So now we've got ourselves a bit of a green, right? What happens right there? So that's a little bit more of a traditional type of a glaze. So yes, we can use these in a more, I don't know, I guess if you want to call it a traditional way, we can. We can mix in some Leviathan with the Wildwood, make it even darker here. Like you do. Let's bring back some dark into this as well. So again, you can work both ways with this. We've added a lot of midtones, Let's go back and add just a bit of darks here. Let's do that here. So again, this is it's Wildwood mixed with a touch of the Leviathan blue. That makes it nice and rich and dark. Another little bit of a glaze. Wipe away some of the excess. Another bit of a glaze. Let's do another little glaze here on this rope. So it doesn't take much, and all of a sudden, again, we get more and more shape. How's about some of that Wildwood, a little bit of the Gore Grunta. Let's do some glazing on the hair and make that darker. And now you'll see the stuff that we made light. If we let that, if we don't affect that too much, just minimal, but let that get darker, and then this even darker. Let's get a little more of that Wildwood in there. Now this, in some ways, is the advantage of the contrast, say, over the transparent and clear paints, in that it's just naturally a glaze, but those other ones, you have to water them down to turn them into a glaze like this. So there's your contrast paints being used in a translucent way again. There's so many different ways to use these things. And I know there was an awful lot. Well, Nessie, you remember the early videos doing this where people would just say, man, I wish GW would have said that and showed us this way instead of just slapping it on. Here, look at this. I'm just going to use my finger, take some of that weight. Look at that. Look what just happened there. So here, again, we've been adding all this lighter stuff, right? There doesn't seem to be much shape there. All right, let's double down on the, again, Vulpes Pink and that Iandin. And we're just going to go right over here. Look at what that does. Look what that's going to do. We're going to take some of, almost like at one of our oil pin washes here, we're going to take some of that. And we kind of just wipe it away, wipe away the excess. And look at the difference there. Big difference. Because it's not super watery at this point, it's also not going all over the place, because that's one of the other chief complaints I heard about the contrast paints, is it leaves watermarks and it runs all over the place. You can see we are not using it, again, not using it in the way the GW prescribes. Who would have thought? Maybe not doing it the way they tell you to, would you be better off? No, let's see. They said don't use the water or you can't mix it. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we nuked. How many mists did we blow up that first week with those contrast paints? Oh my gosh. it looks like Balsacious has mustered the Rohirrim. And thank you so much for that, host. Now I'm going to continue to add some more of that Vulpes pink with the wildwood, making this even darker. So look at all those nice rich darks. How's about, there's our Leviathan blue, there's our wildwood. This is a even darker here. Let's get some major shadows going in this loincloth here and some of our leathers. Even darker here. Let's get some separation here. Now remember we had that conversation, liner versus spotter. So again, 222, this is that Da Vinci Code. Because everybody's obsessed with this first number. Is it a 00, 000, whatever? This can matter just as much. This second number, is it a liner brush like this or a spotter? Nothing wrong with spotters, they're just fine. However, they don't let you do quite as much. See, I kind of have a lot of paint on that brush there. Look at how I can, see how it doesn't really deform? Doesn't really deform. Let's make it some nice rich darks in here. This is basically straight up contrast paint. Do you see it flowing all over the place? I don't think so, because we're controlling it here. We're exercising just a wee bit of control over our contrast. Now we're going to go right under there, start to clean up some of these things. We're going to start to get some reflected light as well. And let's work on some of our metals. I couldn't tell at first if these were supposed to be more of a, what's that, onyx, or what's the more volcanic type material. Couldn't tell if it was supposed to be that, but I think they're just supposed to be metal. At least I think so. Just going to use my finger there, wipe some of that away. Going to go back into my reddish tones here. It's going to bring back some darks in here again. Look at that. Look at the difference. And yes, I'm just using water to thin this down, because I'm just making a little glaze out of it. And look, it's just fine. It's doing just fine. Nothing's happening. Nothing's exploded. At least not yet. Oh, look, we can start to darken this down again. It's that same Leviathan blue, and was it the wildwood that we used at the start? Quite a bit of that. Okay. Now I did somewhere, I had Achillean green, and I'm going to see if I can hunt that. If I can't, I'm just going to use, oh, wait a second. Haha. So Nessie knows what color we haven't seen yet. Obsidian. Thank you so much, Deutschermeister. I appreciate that. Obsidian. Nessie knows what this color is. Yes, it is. It's faded ultramarine. How is it ever not going to be on the palette? And K-Sauce, thanks for joining. Oh, thanks, Zen, for one. I appreciate it. Yes, faded ultramarine has entered the room. All kneel in reverence to the faded ultramarine, which is also going to go into some of our fur colors here. Now the Artisan Guild stuff, it is, I mean, there's some stylization that goes along with it. Yeah, it's your kind of classic 3D sculpting, and it's intentional too. It's not. It is part of the, because you're kind of what would you say? The line, the provenance goes back to the old days of confrontation and their sort of stylized sculpts. So there I just took some of the Iandin, I mixed it with the, right there, look at that, some of the Reaper Maiden Flesh. Take a little bit more of the Maiden Flesh. All of a sudden, look at that. Doesn't take much to have some nice little turn there. However, let's get some green going in that. So we have our green mixed over here. A little bit of reflected light there. I'm going to take some of that. That's our Leviathan blue. And, oh, what's that? The Iandin dark sun together. That's going to make that a little darker now. And then a little bit of wet blending. Just cause. Gonna go back into here. Let's that throw even more of that yellow in there. We got a what's hopefully a lighter opaque green now. And there it is, lighter opaque green. We'll just play with this, mix this around. We can make it even lighter if we so choose. And because it's still wet, we can also do a little bit of wet blending there. Let's do that on the other side here. And oh look, what are we contrasting against? We're contrasting against the dark red hair. So we get red versus green contrast on top of it. And I'm going to get a little bit more of the green in here, and then let's go down here and do a similar thing. We got all these wonderful semi-translucent tones to work with. Let's use them. Let's use these guys. Draw that right down there. So it starts to... We did the middle tone, right? Then we did the shadow, and now we're starting to work some of our lights into this. Starts to really make our skin... Now our skin tones, all of a sudden, those are not quite so insanely light anymore because we started to add light in other places. Always think about working on the whole figure all at once. That's another chapter in the book of Wappel. Faded ultramarine, baby. That's where it's at. And now I'm going to go the other way. So this is essentially more of just the contrast paint. We can go the other way, and now we can tone that down, blend it in, do all kinds of fun things with it. So we go back again to our some of our pro acryl here and start to think about adding a couple of lights to this. I'm also going to have to do some stuff on that rope, and I'm thinking probably wildwood mixed with the probably with the maiden flesh. There, so look what's happening there. Remember, this had virtually no shape on it whatsoever. So let's think about some wildwood here. There's a nice kind of a neutral brown there. Gonna grab some of the maggot white. Again, that is the wildwood and maggot white mixed together. It gives us a nice little brown, which also, oh yeah, that's gonna be a nice little reflected color on our metals. Yes, because we didn't forget our metals. We didn't forget that reflected light. No siree. Didn't forget it here either. Now let's see what we can do here on this leather strap and some of the rope here. And what are we? We're like an hour into this. Oh, thanks, Gernethiel. I appreciate that. Or Gerneth the Real. That's enunciate. Let's enunciate that name just a wee bit better, shall we? Yeah, we're basically an hour into this. This had 0 paint on it an hour ago. As in, like, none. Ooh, look at this. I'm going to actually grab faded ultramarine here. Because what's more natural to mix with brown to make rope than faded ultramarine? Is faded ultramarine not, like, the color to make all colors? Oh, and look at this. This starts to get a little bit more gray, because purple and green make you gray. Well, not you yourself, but make a gray. Yeah, let's hit the little bits of rope down here too. Let's get some of these guys while we're still thinking about it. There we go. Nice little bit of grayish tone on some of these. And as always, we can go back in and do some glazing over that. I'm even going to take some of that gray and think about putting a little bit of it into our skulls. Going to put some of this even onto our skin tones over here. Like you do. Again, thinking that Frazetta type thing. Like here. But oh look, I've got some of this pink over here. So now our gray gets a little bit more of a pinkishness to it. Yeah, I think you can see that. I think you can. This is where the liner brush really handy because it can get way down into all of these crevices here. Now I just realized I got to add me some dark right, well, there. Let's get something on our ponytail holder, whatever that is. And remember, there wasn't a whole lot going on with those reds, and it didn't take long to get ourselves some nice juicy contrast there. I mean, well, they are contrast paints after all. And we can hit it again. Look at that. And let's see, where is... Aha, here it is. So I did get some more. There's some more of these guys coming. And let's see how this works actually with our contrast paint here. I'm going to be curious. That is a 000. That's a sable, though. I want to see what this will do for me. Yeah, okay. This is going to deform, not like the liner brush, but we sort of count on that. We're actually relying on that, sort of changing its shape along the way. Here, let's lighten this up a touch. There we go. But it's really good. See, I can change the width of that line by the pressure on the brush. When you've got the synthetic bristles, they're not going to do that. They are designed to hold their shape. This is sort of designed to deform a bit. It's basically the right brush for the right task. That's kind of how it is. Now let's lighten up our rope a little bit more right here. There we go. So that starts to stand out a touch more. Same thing right there. Let's start to maybe see what the lightest of our skin is going to look like. Again, we've got all the paint out on the palette here. Yes, wet palette. Yes, contrast paints. You can do it. It can be done. Let me see. Oh, Going to the Real has to head off to sleep. Well, thanks for joining. I appreciate you. Have a good night, too. And we've got Hootie Hoot in the house. So this is an Artisan Guild miniature. Basically, if you check out their Patreon page, you can purchase the STL files and you can print them out, and you can print them out whatever size you want. So I have one of these that's printed, well, obviously this one's printed about 72 mil, but I also have another version of this printed at essentially 35 millimeter. It's 28, 30, 32, 35. The scales start to sort of mesh together at a certain point these days. And let's see. The base itself is tree bark and tree branches, and I've done this many times before. Here's another example of it. So this is a previous session that I did. Again, it is tree bark. That is literally just a old dead branch that was sitting on the sidewalk. I mean, all this stuff was literally sidewalk refuse that I picked up, and then did some sculpting on that. And I'll show you in a bit some other examples of basing. And I was filming another basing tutorial just today, and actually I'll be finishing that off later tonight after we're done here. I will be finishing off that tutorial later tonight. But let's get some action on the face here. Let's see if we can't give her some eyes just for some reference there. I'm going to, let's see if we can get some darks over the, there we go. Then let's give those lips a little bit of shading here. Again, that's just your contrast paint straight up. That's the Vulpes pink mixed with, I think, the Gore Grunta. And then we'll go back over that with some additional shading, but we'll just let that dry for right now. I am going to add some of this same reddish color into the hair again, deepen some of those shadows. And again, if we want it to be more opaque, we just say, okay, here, let's grab something that's opaque. So we're going to grab some golden yellow. This is from Pro Acryl here. Just want to make sure I don't miss any chat type stuff. All right, so that is going to be more of an opaque yellow, which will mix with some of that Vulpes pink here. Let's see what we can do in the hair to get some lighter tones. There we go. And again, the whole idea is that it has some semi-translucency to it. We're relying on that. I think you can still watch the Barathi, what are they, the Sentinels? And that's where I was relying on the translucency of my yellow to be able to basically skip layers instead of having to paint every single freaking layer. Okay, let's get some even more lights into this. There we go. You can see that's starting to, look at that. Here, let's get some lights down in here too. Remember, we started out with that being much lighter, then we toned it down with another kind of a re-glaze of the contrast paints, and then now we're taking it back up to a lighter tone again. Starting to pick out more of the hair, giving it more and more shapes, and even some reflected light in places. Speaking of which, let's give this a bit more of an orange color to it, and also some reflected light down here. Better. Just gonna squeeze that brush into there, into our leathers or skin ish. Let's see what we can do now for some of our metals. Start to work in some lighter tones. Now, Again, I can't really find the Achillean green. That's in another part of my setup here. I've been moving this setup around like crazy the last week and a half. So if things are not where they normally are, I'll just have to substitute other things. But what I want to start doing is getting some sky blue into the metals here, like you do. This is basically, what is it, mint green. It's from Reaper. Okay. Can work in some of these right into those metals. Boom. Not gonna forget my faded ultramarine. I mean, hey, it's faded ultramarine. You don't forget the faded ultramarine. Faded ultramarine forgets you, but you don't forget the faded ultramarine. Let that kind of blend in a bit with our mint green. Let's get some lighter tones here and take the maggot white with the faded ultramarine. Let's see if we can get some lighter colors here in the fur. And again, this brush, because it's going to deform as I make some of these brush strokes and become wider, it's sort of the ideal thing for these long brush strokes that we want to have. Give it a little bit of a flourish. And none of this is white, by the way. We can go a whole bunch lighter than this. This is essentially an off-white. If we brought up the bold titanium white, you would see, oh, definitely you would see white, and you'd see a big old difference. But you can start to see the lights are starting to kind of point you towards the face as well. And so I'm starting to figure out, okay, what exactly is everything here? Because I'm not quite sure what some of these things are. Again, we're going to find ourselves some lighter tones on the cloak to just sort of point you towards that face. Okay. Let's start to add some even lighter skin tones here. We haven't really done much of that. We've gone sort of to the middle on our skin tones. We can definitely go further than that. We'll start out here with the face. And again, my palette camera is kind of in the way. We got this big old base that's kind of smashing into it right now. Get the cheek there. And start to work in some lighter tones on the hands and on the legs here, which we can, we'll just grab the colors that we've already got here. You know, a little bit of that Vulpes pink, some of our warmer tones as well. There we go. And we can feather that out because, again, it's got enough of the contrast paint mixed into it so that it's semi-translucent, but without it having to be that watery kind of a glaze or wash or anything like that. Some more lights here. Again, trying to lock in what's going to be our lightest lights, and then we'll try and see what kind of tattoo type things we want to do on that, which is why I may not go super elaborate with all the skin tones there, because heck, a lot of that might just get covered up with tattoo designs. Okay. Let's do some stuff on the cheeks here. We also are going to need some reflected light there, but first we'll put some color in there, and then I'm going to go back to more of a liner brush here after I get something to drink here. And there's our quadruple zero. This is an area again where I normally am using the liner paint, but here it's going to be that's going to be our contrast paint. And this is where it can do a very similar task because it is thinner. It's not too bad for doing, well, guess what? Thin lines like this. So now she's got a little bit of a eyebrow at this point. Let's get the other eye going here too. Can you see that? I think so. And once again, I'm relying on the fact that this synthetic bristle is not going to deform as I put pressure on it. It's going to maintain its shape. That's really important there. I'm going to get some darker colors on the upper lip here too, which I think is pretty well centered for you. Okay, now Vulpes pink, and we'll just mix this with some of our lighter colors. It's semi-translucent light, and then we start to put some of that here. Let's get some right around her eye there. Again, we need a little bit of shadow there. It's getting to be a little bit too much of the same middle tone. There's not necessarily a ton of texture or shape that's sculpted in there. I have to sort of paint that in a little bit. No big deal. This is where, see, I'm going to get a little bit of reflected light way down in there. Keeps it from looking too flat. I see an awful lot of faces where the dark shading goes all the way around, and that's actually not your realistic way to do that. As we welcome Drax into Wappelville, be sure to give Drax a follow. He can also, if he wants to do his own self shout out, he can do that too. Sorry I didn't get to join you last night, but actually I've been wanting to show people this. So this is what I was filming last night. I still have to finish it off, but I was doing another basing tutorial. So we got Sculpey combined with our oxide paste and epoxy sculpt. There's another, again, fun example of the Sculpey mixing and blending with other things. We've got some more of our Sculpey there. Fun little bases like that. So, oh, and in some of our green stuff world, the texture plates, I really love those. Those are fantabulous. Put this back over here. And let's get back into this and add some, you know what, I am going to get some, where's my bold titanium white here? Let's throw this out here. I know that's making a lot of racket there. Is it? Nope, that's metal medium. Here we go. Just going to throw this out here off to the side. Oh, we're using contrast paints, by the way. Just so you know, we're combining contrast paints here with our regular paints in here. So I'm going to grab some of my light here, and we're going to now hit some of the fur while we're at it. Make sure that we've got the eyes pretty well lightened up there. Let's also get some lighter tones in our metals here, like you do. And we're going to go back in there. We'll probably add some pinks into that too. go. We'll get our edge light there. Now again, I can still go a long ways for lightening up this skin tone. There's a long ways we can go. See, we've got to get the nostrils here. Let's get some more light on her face. Forehead here. So I think this Quad Zero is definitely starting to show some signs of fatigue. It's been well used, to say the least. Gonna find myself some more lights on our fur over here. Trying to lead your eye into the face, not take your eye away from the face. Metals to do over here. A nice edge there. The one thing I do recommend, though, with when you got the Artisan Guild things like this, some of the edges of the weapons, they can be a little bit on the softer side as they print. I just take that's where my wonderful little sandpaper sticks do such a fantastic job and quite literally sharpening the weapons. I mean, that's basically what's happening, is you're sort of reforging some of those weapons. Here, let's get some lighter tones here on our skin. There we are. Let's go back into our contrast paint over here, the little green that we made. Got it mixed in with our white. Let's get a little bit of other colors in the hair. And then do our little right there under the eye, because we want that to have a bit of a shadow color but not be super dark. We can lighten that up a bit now. Again, get some color under the eye. Let's put some color in the eye, and let's see what we can do here to maybe make it more of a bluish color here. And I'm thinking she's looking off to the screen left. Yeah. So the idea is that's, again, sort of translucent there. So by default, hopefully, yeah. And then we'll have to add our dark pupil onto that. See if we can do that with this right here, there, and there. Gonna reinforce that line. Let's see what happens if can we get a little bit of our highlight under the, I think you can see it. Boom, right there. And another one right there. Then we'll have to get our eyebrow back in here. And I'll look at the chat in a second. I just gotta, there we go. Let's see. Oh, we're all caught up. Good to know. Gonna get some more highlights onto her hair, or at least her ponytail here. Add some of my white into that. And that's all it takes, that little tiny touch of bold titanium white. Gives that enough opacity. And here what I'm going to try and do is pull out a few individual hairs, not just highlights, but pick out some strands of hair. And now not all of that is red necessarily, so I might even double down on that. Actually, I'm going to put a little bit of lighter color here. It's another way of basically bringing you more towards the face by going extreme on the highlights here. There. Okay, yeah, that does it. That starts to bring you in towards the face, I think. Then we're also going to have to hit some of these metals back here. Now we also have this shyish purple in here. Well, let's mix that with our faded ultramarine. See what kind of purple we can start to put in our metals and other such things. Like that. We'll go a little bit heavier even with some of our reflected light there. And then, there's my pink, because that ain't metal if it ain't got pink. So let's get some pink in there. That's what was missing. And let's get some of that, see if I can get some of this kind of pink into her skin tone. Also onto her lips, and I want to get some onto her hands, because with the way the blood vessels are so close to the ends of your fingers there, it's not a bad idea to have a decent amount of this sort of pink color in the skin tones of the hands. I'm going to go even light. If I want these things to maybe be some kind of gold here, let's brighten up our highlights on the edge of these. Like so. Okay. And a little bit more of a semi-translucent light yellow glaze, and then work some purple into that, because, you know, purple and gold definitely go together just like green. Okay, we're going to find her. So there's a lot of green going on there. Let's get some maybe less green colors, like, I don't know, some of this grayish purple. Aha, there we go. There we go. Now there's a little bit more. This, if something of this scale, if this was 30, even at 32 millimeter, 28, you still want to have some fun colors going on in shadows. But when you get something of this scale, you've got to get some decent colors going on in your shadows. Something more interesting. Oh, thanks, Blaz. I appreciate that. I really do enjoy the Artisan Guild miniatures, because they're sort of designed, gosh, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the old Keltos figures, but they're sort of designed to be more of an open canvas for you, where you can just do more stuff with them, whereas the GW figures, there is so much stuff crammed into every last millimeter of it. Sometimes kind of squashes what you can actually do with them, because there's just so much stuff going on. Now I'm going to work in a little bit of this kind of reddish yellow down into here. There we go. That's better. So there wasn't a whole lot of shifting going on with the colors. It was all kind of the same green everywhere. Now we've got some purples in there. Look at that. Really changes that up. So much better. Let's get some lighter tones in the fur and on this sort of strapping here on her super chakram, we'll just call it that. Again, as I was thinking about this, I love the idea of combining frisbee and lawn darts. Like, that would be the coolest kids game ever. That would just be amazing. I'd play that. Get some light here, but look, I also still have there's some of the wildwood, and I'm just gonna wet blend that. It's like what we were doing not all that long ago. And keep in mind,
Hello, little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
as we say, thank you so much for the follow, Blaz. I appreciate that. We started this an hour and 40 minutes ago, really. That's when all of this began. This was nothing but primer. Here, let's get a couple of our cut marks into this. And, what the heck? Let's go back. Let's do this. Right? This is pretty much just contrast paint here. Let's go back in here and just stipple in. So most people don't see contrast paint being used quite this dry. But that's essentially kind of semi-dry contrast, but we're just kind of scumbling that in there. It's almost like we're scumbling in weathering powders or something. Just scumble that right in there. Now let's take a little bit of our faded ultramarine there. Boom. Take my finger and we'll mix it some more. There we go. Our leathers start to change color a bit. Let's get the last of the lighter tones here. Skin tones on the leg, and you can see we got a long ways to go. This is still just maiden flesh here. It's not white or anything. I know it sort of looks that way, but believe me, it's not. It is not. Then we talked about some of those greenish flesh tones. Let's do that. I'm going to take some of the main flesh. We'll mix it with that green that's over there. Let's see what we can sneak in here. And because it is contrast paint, look at that. It's got a tint of green there, but it's not really dark or anything. And we'll just again push that around. We need something here. There's a whole lot of not much there. I am going to take some of that. It's not just green, but it's also a lighter. We'll do that on this side as well. So you can see what that did. That just right there, that already gave us way more shape than was there. It was kind of no shape. We went from no shape to finally some shape. Let's get some definition here in the feet as well. Now, do we want to... I'm going to get some... basically around the corners of her lips here. I'm trying to get just a little bit of a shadow into that. I also think I need some... yeah, I need some lighter skin tone over here as well. Oh, let's see. Oh, thank you so much. Like in the blues and pinky blues in the metal. Yes, got to have that pink in there. And oh well, thanks. Thanks for watching. And I'm hoping tomorrow to be doing a very long kind of marathon session, sort of a Saturday paint-a-thon. That's kind of becoming a thing these days, at least for me. So that is my hope, is to be doing a very long painting session tomorrow. So hopefully I will catch you then. There we go. I think yes, I need to do the same. I need to do the same over here. I really do enjoy the Artisan Guild faces. Now, if any of you folks are familiar with the sculptor, and this is a bit of a blast from the past, it's Werner Klock. Well, he's not from the past. He still sculpts now. Freebooter Miniatures is his miniature line, but he did a lot of the Reaper sculpts way back in the day. He actually did a lot of the early Dark Age sculpts. But he had a really distinct style for sculpting his faces. Let me see. I think I've got. Do I have? I didn't think I had Facebook open here anywhere. So I do apologize. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, let's just kill that. That's better. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Okay, that's more like it. Let's go back to her skin tones here on her arm. So starting with that kind of a rosy type color. And now we're going to do a little bit of wet blending here, like so. Boom. Oh, we need to get some of that green back here. That is very appropriate to have there. We also need to do something on these guys. Let's bring out my... That is the 000 Sable. And then I just got to do something here. There's a whole lot of nothing shape-wise that's happening on this. We're going to start out just throwing some shape on here. Just kind of random shapes. Going to bring out, again, that little bit of strapping on there. Obviously, I would assume to keep your hand from getting sliced on the lawn dart frisbee, which just sounds like the best game ever. I'd play that game for sure. It's kind of like Firecracker Dodgeball. Some more of the green works its way. This is the lighter green working its way into our mix. Starting to get some more definition, whatever those little straps are supposed to be. Gonna get some more of this green into... Yeah, we need some lights here, because that's, I mean, it's basically pointed up towards the sky. It can't really be all that dark. I'm also gonna try and get some of these greens into the fur here as well. Like you do. And again, this brush will... It's gonna deform a little bit, which I'm kind of counting on. Gives me these little kind of triangles here. Oh, let's get some yellow into that green. So that's some of the, again, our contrast Iandin yellow that we just threw in there. And then I'll probably go back into that with maybe even some darker glazes as well. Here, let's get some... Let's add some lights to the... Right up in this area here. But you can see we're using basically a light green as our highlight color, because it's going to contrast nicely with all of the pinks and reds that we've got in that skin tone there. And we've still got some of our... Ah, there it is. I was wondering where that white disappeared to. It kind of went underneath my little watercolor tray. I just grabbed some of the wildwood again. Uh-oh. Ah, we have a reading from the Book of Wappel here. Let's go all over here and find a reading from the sacred text. This is actually the Book of Wappel, chapter 5, verse 1. I am the truth and the light, for I am faded ultramarine. And that one was just special for you. I've been saving that one for you. Yes, I am Faded Ultramarine, the truth and the light. Faded Ultramarine. Haha. Yes, chapter 5, verse 1. Well, actually, Faded Ultramarine probably is in 2/3 of the chapters of the Book of Wappel because it's Faded Ultramarine. I mean, come on. A reading from the sacred text. And you too, if you redeem those chat rewards, you can also have a reading from the Book of Wappel. Now I've got my wildwood here. We will combine it with our lovely maiden flesh to make, look at that. There's a nice sort of almost a Van Dyke brown color there. Lighten it up even more. And then we're going to go back in with some of the wildwood, probably mixed with a little of the Gore-Grunta maybe. And we'll knock some of that down a bit in the shadow areas. Using it much the way we would, something like brown liner. I'm going to go even one step lighter on that before we go back in and knock it down again. Okay, there's our one more strand of light there, and now we'll go back in. Here's our wildwood. You know, I'm going to use my quadruple 0 here. Good, palette's still where it's supposed to be. I actually blue tacked the palette in place so that it wouldn't be moving around. There we go. I'm going to mix a little of my Leviathan blue with that. It not only makes it darker, also shifts it away from brown just a little bit. Look at that, brings in some nice, rich, deep dark, which we will use up here too on our metals. Nice little bit of contrast on that. And you can see, look at, we're just literally painting with the contrast paints. Is it running all over the place? It's most definitely not. Ooh, let's see what, oh, look at that. That's your Vulpes paint combined with the Faded Ultramarine. That's a nice one. Look at that. Very nice little mix. Let's throw a touch of this maggot white into that and start to lighten it here a little bit. Again, we're looking for some reflected light on our metals here, like you do. There's some of our green. Letting that basically wet blend into there, because we can. Got this, again, nice, rich, dark. Can use to accent all kinds of fun things here. I see the little, yeah, let's get some of this dark back into our rope over here. There we go. And all of this in really less than 2 hours. Less than 2 hours. Ooh, let's get some darks into this as well. And this also kind of lost the edge of that. We'll bring it right back again. So again, contrast paints. You can do some nice, just straight up painting with them. They don't have to just be slopped all over the place. You can actually control them and paint with them like they're regular paint. Of course, you could also use the Reaper Clear liners as a much cheaper alternative, as you would the Pro Acryl transparents. Let's get some more of our darks lined up into here. Oh, we got our hand to do yet, so let's get some lighter colors into that hand. Once again, we're going into our pink over here. like you do. That's the Vulpes pink and the Maiden Flesh. Let's go more. The Maiden Flesh, let that blend in there. Some more wet blending. Okay, that's more like it. Always have all my mixes handy so I can go back into those. Let's see if we can use some of our, that's the, what was that, the Shyish Purple and Faded Ultramarine mix there. Let's get some of that into our skin tones again. Along with a little bit of our Maiden Flesh. Gonna get some right over here because this area was just, it's still some of our original wash that we did there. But again, semi-translucent because we got enough of our contrast paint in there. Okay, we'll lighten that up. Let's get some lights onto the knuckles here because we need those. Get some lights onto the knee again here. We might even throw some shadows in there as well. Okay. I'm gonna get my little mix here of the Leviathan blue and the Wildwood, and we're just gonna bring back some darks into these ropes here. I don't necessarily want to have to rely too much on highlights there because, well, you're kind of about as far away from that face as you're going to be able to get. So we don't want to be, again, the goal is to not take away from the face. We're trying to lead up to the face. Now let's get some lights on kind of the leading edge of the strapping here, just like we did on this. Maybe not quite so light here. Also going to have to get some of the skin tone that is in there. It will be somewhat tricky, but that's what Mr. Quadruple Zero artificial hair brush is for, because again, it maintains its shape even as I press on it pretty darn hard. That other brush that you saw me using earlier would not be in the least bit ideal for that particular task. I see we need some darks under here. Oh, Mark CMG, use that special knuckle paint. Yeah, that is the one. Well, let's see, what was it when I did my oils? It was my third palette. I had my primary palette, my secondary palette, and my finger was my tertiary palette, I believe it was. That was a blast. Now, I am going to take some of the, oh, look at this. This is going to be a fun green right here. So that's some of the Iandan yellow, mixing it with my Reaper sort of mint green. There is a nice little greenish yellow. I'm going to throw that into this. Again, it's semi-translucent. I'll put some of that here. Some of that's going to go here. Possibly even into the hair. Yes, the hair is red, but I want some variety in that. I also want some variety in these. I'm going to get some of that, what the heck, I'm going to get some of that green onto my metals there. Let's do something with this. We don't have a whole lot happening with that. Let's see what we can do to make that more interesting. Well, let's get some red in there. So I just took some of the, that's the Fire Slayer red, mixed it with my yellow. That's a nice little more reddish brown. See, there a little bit on the strapping there. It's going to make those blues are going to look even more intense blue. Not because they're still a grayed down blue, but because the color next to it is so warm, it changes how they appear. It also carries some of that reddish color from her hair down to somewhere else besides just on her hair. I'm going to even throw a bit more of that onto her weapon here. And some of it onto the legging. Before I go back in, I'm going to take my... Nope, not the maggot white. Going to go with the maiden flesh. Almost, yeah. We don't want to have a bluish white right next to a bluish white. That's not going to provide much contrast whatsoever. Couple little highlights here. Makes that fur texture come out. Let's do some stuff on the feet here. Bring that out. Get some highlights there on the top of her feet. Because, I mean, that is kind of where the light is hitting. So let's do that. Get a little more of my maiden flesh here. Let's get rid of some of the extra. Using a little thumb palette. And there we go. So we got some texture there on the feet. Okay. And where's my... Again, I pinked out, just kind of wet blend into here, scumble that around. Okay. We gotta do... We need some... I think some of this greenish color in here. That's better. Yep, that's what was missing. There was so much of the same color there. We didn't have much in the way of shape. Now, go the opposite way here. Let's get some more of that pink going. Right in there. Do a little wet blending with our maiden flesh into that. And a little more. And I think, there we go. There was, looking a little bit flat there. We hadn't really done much in that area whatsoever since the start. Let's get some reflected light going on here. And take some of the faded ultramarine, and I think we'll mix that with our... Oh, there's a nice... It's an interesting green right there. And just gonna get some reflected light down in here. It was just, again, not a whole lot of shape. It's not gonna be shiny like armor, but even a black sweatshirt will have some kind of reflected light. I see we have a whole bunch of skin tone to do over here. Let's do that. Somehow that's just still our original glaze color there, so we shall... There we go. I'll even make sure I get some yellow into that so it doesn't get too much towards the pink. Let's lighten that up a bit. Okay. There we go. 'Cause I'm looking at that going, okay. What's missing over here? Yes, there's some light colors missing over here. I think I will... Yeah, just wet blending a little bit of the maiden flesh into there. Let's see if we can't get one little bit of a light in there.
Hello, little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
Who does Gandalf welcomes in Lunchbox. Thank you so much for the follow. It is appreciated. We're just having some fun here with our Artisan Guild. Basically 72 millimeter print here. Just really enjoying this. I'm going to get some more of my lighter tone here on our bracer. There. And I think we're going to sneak in some lighter tones on her weapon here as well. Into her hair. And we're still using our contrast paint. We're still mixing that with regular paint. This is sort of a combination of two different types of regular paint and several contrast paints. Just bringing out some of the lights in her hair. But if that gets too light, here, let's get, there's some of the Iandin, some of the Vulpus pink. And there, that was just, it was too light. But there, now again, a sort of a semi-translucent tone. Yeah. There we have it. Oh, let's get some highlights here. Gee whiz, how did I not see this on the ends of the hair right there? Let's, yeah. Just a couple. I see. I'm gonna go back in here with this. That's my green mixed with the faded ultramarine. And we're looking to get a little more light here. And we're also going to do some skin tone here. Like so. So a little less like some kind of mascara and a little bit more just like skin tone. I mean, nothing wrong with the mascara thing, but I see I've got a little wedge of skin tone that's got to go right in here between the eye and the eyebrow. Also need that nostril needed to be lightened up, and then we've got some lighter skin. Don't know if you can see it. It needs to go right in here. That's okay. Now that makes a little more sense, and we need to do it here too. That all makes more sense, and I think I may again take that Vulpus pink. We're going to mix it with the Maggot white here. Going to see what I can do highlight wise on the lower lip. And then I also need to get some lighter tone on the upper lip. So there's a kind of a semi-translucent. That's the Vulpus pink mixed with a little bit of the Maggot white. That already helps a bit. I think we need to get it even lighter. There. Because you don't want that upper lip to just be only dark. There has to be more to it than that. Back into some lighter right there on her nose. I think I'm going to take this lighter. Try to get right there. Aha. I think that's a more dramatic, yeah. Oh, let's see. It's contrast paint with special guest Maggot White, Maiden Flesh, and Faded Ultramarine. But Faded Ultramarine. It's on every guest list. It's on every A1 list or A list, right? Let's mix that with with our Leviathan blue. Oh, there we go. That's nice. Let's get a little bit of reflected light down here. So there's some of our wildwood, and that's mixing with our faded ultramarine until we go back into our, here, some of our mint green and maggot white. We'll get a little bit of reflection on this. Then I think, oh yeah, we're going to get some, I think we'll go in with some more of our regular bold titanium white as well and find a few highlights. But now, back to our wildwood and Leviathan blue mix for some, bringing back some darks and some lines here. We've got some of these little cut marks. That's better. Okay, need to build that shape back in there a little bit. I will go into my, this is my sort of grayish brown mix. I need to get some couple of lights here on the, yeah, on the ropes here. Might even go a touch lighter there. And it's not going to be a very bright highlight because it's not totally opaque. There's enough of the contrast paint in there, just enough of it to keep it from being totally opaque. And now we're going to reinforce some darks along here as well. So basically using these a lot like I would use the Reaper, say the blue and brown liner paints. I can even, yeah, let's restore a few deep dark shadows in here. Like you do. Aha, see I'm missing a few. Definitely missing some highlights along here. As we do it there, let's go a couple of brighter highlights here again on that fur. Makes that seem a bit more dramatic, and got to finish off some more darks on the gauntlet here, and then figure out what's going to happen right here. Again, we got some more of these straps coming along. Put some mid-tones on them. And it can be any color. In that case, it's kind of a purplish gray. Gonna get some of this pink into here, make a darker tone to get between the fingers here. So we gotta get some separation in those. They're all just kind of mushed together. Little separation there. Let's get some darks in the hair. We did those individual lights there to pull out more strands of hair. I'm going to go the other way now, and we'll use our darker color. Do the same thing. I think, yeah, let's get the part of that hair. Get that darker as well. Some more darks over here in our leathers. We're also going to, let's get some shadows in the skin here. We're a little shy on shadows here. So put in a few of these. Again, it's just kind of a, it's getting to be palette sludge time here in some ways. Again, we're going to get some shading over here. As you can see, that starts to take on some more form, just like we did with the feet, just like we did with the hands and the face, all the same same ideas. But we were thinking about doing some kind of tattoos, and before it gets too long into this, see what we can do here. Now we've got that one design. It's the one on the far left there. It's sort of like swirls inside of swirls. So Leviathan Blue just happens to be a really handy sort of tattoo starting point. And we're going to mix just a little bit of the faded ultramarine with it. So it's not too dark, but it is still semi-translucent here. Oh, another nice thing is when you put regular paints in with your contrast paints, it makes it a bit easier to use just water to thin them down. Oh, let's see, Patacane. Oh, Calvita, how are you doing? Patacane says, I am painting my army with you, and about every 15 minutes I look up to see the progress and say, oh my. Hopefully the tattoos are another oh my here. Let's get these in place. So I'm just looking at that design. That's going to be interesting. So, again, just going to get this enough to flow here. Okay. And I think as this goes along, you'll sort of see, and it's that design on the far left-hand side, like the far left-hand side. Okay. Then we've got, it looks like this type of shape here. And I'm just going to kind of fill that in with the blue. Then we've got a sort of a little bit of a swirl here, like so. Does that connect? That does connect right here. And that swings around like so. And what we'll do is after this, we basically glaze a bit of the flesh tone over the top of it. And that's what basically kind of gives you the tattoo style effect. Okay, just gonna get rid of that. So we got our swirl going here. Oh wow, okay, that doesn't quite work the way I thought it. I'm glad I just sort of stopped and took a second look at it. Okay. And then let's have a bit of a, okay. This needs to actually be a little bit more of a rounded shape here. And now this part of, wow, that gets complicated. That shape's going to go like so. Let's see, Kelvia, doing well, and thanks for asking. I hope that all of your painting projects are, well, mostly frustration-free, because not all painting projects go that way. Okay. This is vaguely parallel to that. And then, wow, does that get complicated? So this is mostly sort of a triangle there. Another little interrupted swirl. Oh my gosh, there's like a tiny swirl within a swirl here. Holy smokes. And then what's on the other? Oh my gosh, there's another swirl over here, which we'll try and draw in as best as we can. Okay, let's have this go here, and then that is going to be this shape. Oh my goodness, okay. So we've got that. Now we've got to do this shape above this one. And this swirl actually integrates into this whole thing here. So let's do that before we forget. And then this one starts inside that. And then, okay. Very well. It looks like a Zentangle. I broke the cookie in my hands watching him. Speaking of cookies, I'm hoping that Kathy will make cookies tomorrow while I'm doing this, because I made the last batch of cookies and there's only 2 of those lemon cookies left. Now, I don't believe she is in the chat here, so I wish she was, because then people could put extra, just a wee bit of pressure on her to make those cookies for Saturday so that I don't end up starving to death. All right, this one, I'm going to try and end this out here. Just going to kind of manipulate it with my own little additional design. Like that. And have that continue this way too. Okay.
Who enters my domain?
Who enters my domain? It's Eeny Meeny. So be sure to give her a follow. Now, I don't know if she might be done with the bee project. We will ask her as soon as she comes into the room here. As we continue on, let's see, we've got a Fuker 40, we got Zen for 1, we have AT Roger and Harrow Monkey, and Zambies too. We got Zambies in the house, and Trader Legions, and Tavistian, and Vicious Bunny. So there's like a whole list of people that you should probably go follow, because they're lots of fun, so you should follow them. Now we are actually, believe it or not, we are working with contrast paints here. Most of this painted with contrast paints. That's what's up in these little containers here. Let's go back. Let's review a little bit here. So, watercolor palette. Classic watercolor transportable palette. With these little inserts right here. Okay. Those are really good for taking your contrast paint like this. And here's my Levite. I just poured it in here, so now I've got this out on my wet palette. Not going to spill. And oh, by the way, yeah, this is my homemade wet palette. When I cover this up, those contrast paints will stay good for a couple of days, believe it or not. And that's what all of this has been. You can see we've got the contrast paint mixed with just a couple of key lighter colors. But right now, we're using mostly Leviathan blue over here just to do a spot of tattoo designs. Our enemy is still working on the bee, touching it up off stream. Well, yep, that is what you always got to do, because you can. Oh, and Olden Spurge, thank you so much for joining in. Yeah, I was wondering if that was done, or if it reached that phase of, oh my gosh, there is no way I can do any more of this on camera, because it's just not going to go very well. So now what we're going to go is back into our pattern here, and let's pick out. Let's make that a little bit more hollow. There we go. So we sort of did the design initially. Now we're going to go back in. Also, as you can see, we're kind of glazing over the top of this as well to knock down some of that darker blue, like here. Same thing over here. Oh, let's see. Yeah, that is I was hoping that was either all done, or you were in that phase of, well, now I just got to do the rest of this off camera. Because trying to keep track of chats and everything else and all the other fun things makes it really difficult to focus on details. We are going to, there we go. It's going to manipulate that just a touch. Maybe put some shading into the leg that wasn't quite there. So again, we did all of this, and then we just dropped a tattoo on it. just because. Why not? So this is basically Vulpes pink mixed with some of our Reaper clears, and we're just going to go over the top of this, tone that down a little bit. Same over here. And then we'll go back in. I'm trying to basically insert a little more of a pattern into the tattoo, but also...
Hello, little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
As Gandalf welcomes in AT Roger, thank you so much for the follow. Gandalf appreciates it, and so do I. We're also going to find ourselves some highlights here. Again, that's the maiden flesh. So you can see over here we've got the Vulpes pink mixed with some of our lighter colors. We're using wildwood mixed with some of our lighter colors. We're using some of the snakebite leather. Look at how that gives it a little bit of a kind of a greenish yellow tint, and oh, that's handy for other places like here. So yeah, that is contrast paint, but because we added a little bit of our lighter tones, it now is like a semi-opaque, and you can actually paint.
Hello, little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
We've got Hunt You Down. Thank you so much for the follow. It is appreciated. Oh, you know what? We can mess with our little scullies over here. Let's do that. We haven't messed with these scullies in a while, since kind of the beginning. We don't want them to get too bright, but we also don't want them to just be forgotten about. They'd be sad, sad little scullies there. Those are from Green Stuff World, and they're basically like giant size, literally giant skulls, but at 72 mil, now they're just kind of like orc-sized skulls. Gives them a whole different perspective on these guys, which look so massive. Let's see, do I have? Aha! So there's one of those big old skulls on your typical kind of 28 mil Warcry figure there. Same skull, very different perspective there. Oh, thanks, Enemies. Appreciate it. This has been so... It's been a long time. Basically what gave me the idea is as I looked at the calendar, I went, wait a minute. Because I was looking at some of my YouTube videos. And I said, you know what? It was June 15th when I did the very first contrast paint video. Because people wanted to see some other way of using the contrast paints besides just, well, slapping a whole bunch of paint on there as that nasty sort of starting wash and then nothing else. We got Toofs. Toofs is a Wappelian again. Thank you so much for that. Oh, actually, speaking of Artisan Guild, here's another one, and this is me. There's Wappelia Spellblade, and he's going to drink out of his cup of goodness over there until she chases him away, because she says, this is my stream. You don't get to come in here. I am going to take some of that maiden flesh, though, and bring up a touch of these highlights a bit. There we go. If you don't like it, I'll just wipe it away, because that's what you do. Now this is where we took some of the, what was it, Iandin? Yeah, we took some of this and we're mixing it with the Leviathan and with some of our lighter green. And that's what formed a lot of the greens that were in here. So we're going to do some more of that. Again, it's like a glaze. Sort of we've been calling them a dry glaze because it's semi-translucent, but there's no water in it. Oh, thank you so much for the 2-month subscription. That is appreciated. I will... Actually, once I finish the next basing video, this is something I was going to treat the subscription or subscribers to. So for those that haven't seen it yet, this is a video that I'm in the middle of filming here. And a typical base, I love my basing. And we've got some epoxy sculpt there, some of our Sculpey, some of our oxide paste. It's another little example again. We wanted some of those kind of Indiana Jones sort of temple themed bases, and again some of our Green Stuff World texture plates and other such things. And oh, here also is the latest Dark Sword video that we just finished here. I love these Dark Sword kind of angel type miniatures, and I just had a reference of a macaw, and I just thought, you know what, it would be very fun to do that color scheme. So let's go back here. We've got our yellowish green again. We're going to find ourselves some more highlights here, and then also some green on the skin tone, because we got lots of red over there, not seeing much in the way of green. We're also going to take some of this grayed down purple here, throw just a hint of light there. Now, thinking I may get some more reflected light on this side of her face. So, where's some of my faded ultramarine? We'll mix that in with our, whoops, that's not water, that is sort of a grayish purple here. There we go. Because how can her face be right next to this cloak with all the fur and everything that's so light, and yet it has zero impact on her skin tone? I just can't have that. That's not going to work. Here, let's do some more darks here around her eyebrows. I think we're going to make that a little more prominent. Maybe even enhance. That's not just darker because it has some of the Leviathan blue in it. It's also going to contrast with some of the reds and oranges there in the hair. Also going to try and get some of those individual strands again, because they're not necessarily sculpted in there. It's more blocks of hair. So this is where we can basically put that detail in ourselves. That is the fun thing about the Artisan Guild figures, is that they are more like open canvases. Lets you have more freedom to put like there. You know, I wanted to put a tattoo there or something like that. I just do it. I just put it there. See if we can maybe, again, this is that. There's our Leviathan blue. We're going to build back up some of the tattoo design here. Now I'm also kind of literally working in the dark. That's one of the consequences of the camera and the lights and everything. For this to look like normal lighting to you, it has to be virtually darkness for me. So afterwards, I will probably go in here, and when I can actually turn all of my lights on, then I'll go into this and try and clean a few things up. But for right now, I'm trying to get some more intricacies into that tattoo design. That's better. Now here, even though when we were just painting that initially, we had plenty of shape there, but now with the tattoo, all of a sudden that kind of broke up our shading. So I actually have to basically inject a little more shading into that. Wappel. Thanks again, Toofs. I'm really looking forward to the dragon, because I saw the painted version of it that you had there, and with that terrain and such, that was looking really nice. Okay, I'm gonna take some of this away. I'm gonna make that a little bit, just a little bit lighter. And yes, this is a 3D print from Artisan Guild. There we go. And I've got a few other artisans there. So again, this is me. That's Wappelius Spellbrush right there. Now that one's actually printed at 28 mil. Then we've got our vampire. This is actually, this is on the YouTube channel as well. Actually, so is he, and so is she, also on the YouTube. And oh, there we go. There's some pictures of our dark sword thief, so you can look at those a little bit more in there. Some luxury there. That was so much fun. Again, that was the latest episode thrown up onto the Patreon page just yesterday afternoon, I believe. And I'll try and get that link out to subscribers as well. Yeah, let's get a little bit more of a light into this too. We haven't really messed around with this since, oh gosh, probably almost a couple hours ago. Oh, Trader Legions is heading off to bed. Well, thanks again for joining. And let's see, Zen for One, Green Stuff Worlds. Oh, they are fantastic. I absolutely love those. So here, got a few of those laying around. Oh, actually, this is what, so tomorrow we're supposed to have basically a paint-a-palooza here, a big paint-a-thon on the Twitch channel. Oh my goodness, this is difficult to bring in here without knocking everything over, but see that? There's your Green Stuff World texture rollers at work. A big old diorama. And this was another one of my Patreon tutorials. See those columns that we sculpted there? But we've got all of the individual Dark Sword figures that go with that. And we're calling it the Muses of Delphi. And we'll be painting a bunch of these tomorrow. I got 9 of these to paint. So some point tomorrow, hopefully, you good folks will be joining me as I paint a whole bunch of these Dark Sword miniatures. And potentially the base, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But now I'm going to go back to Mr. Scully's down here and try and get some lighter colors. I'm going to take some of that green. That should tone down some of that yellow. Get me a little bit lighter. I really don't want these to be that classic bleached bone because this is supposed to be more of a jungle type setting. Well, basically anything besides a desert type setting, you're just not going to have bleached bone skulls. It doesn't quite work that way. If anything else, they basically kind of become black and get stained by all that moisture that gets in them. I mean, it's okay to have a little bit of light there. You want to have actually some kind of shading too. And speaking of Green Stuff World, these are basically giant heads. They are literally supposed to be giants. Here, let's get some couple of lights here, just on the teeth in some areas maybe. There we go. Now I'm going to take some of this, maybe even go into the maiden flesh with that, see if there's some lighter tones we can find on the skin. I think we can. And because that tattoo is there before, there was some muscle shapes in there, but because of the tattoo that didn't read very well, so we made a change. I think we're also going to, so I think you can see on that tattoo, I'm trying to actually work out some of the interior parts of the design on that. Oh, what about the rope here? A couple of bright, just a couple of touches there. Gonna move this out of the way so I can actually get to this white over here, and we'll do some more on our metals and some on our fur. Yeah, and that's it. That should be interesting. That's going to be a real interesting time tomorrow. It's going to be sort of like that Baratheon Bonanza, right, where we just kept painting one Baratheon NCU after another. We're just going to be painting one Dark Sword figure after another. Now, Dark Sword of Palooza, that doesn't quite ring off the tongue the same way Song of Palooza did, but we'll see what we can find. We'll find some kind of fun thing we can call it. Now again, I'm just gonna take my faded ultramarine here, and let's go back into that sort of pinkish color, again into our metals. Let's kind of finish this off a bit. Where else? Oh, yeah, I think that's also supposed to be metal there. I didn't think so at first, but the more I look at it, yeah, that is also probably supposed to be metal there. So, throw some in there. Some of our mint green. Here we are. Again, not looking necessarily for a super bright highlight there, just something. Just a little something. Reflected light, as always, here on the other side of our blade. Who is...
Enters my domain.
Well, look at that. Look at that. That is Reaper Miniatures, folks. That is Reaper Miniatures. Thanks so much for the raid. And we'll welcome them in. And hey, we're using... These have been the two kind of core colors here that we've changed all of those contrast paints with.
Hello,
Couple of Reaper
little
paints.
hobbits. Spark my ganja.
Thank you so much for the follow, BC Legend. I appreciate that. We'll welcome in our raiders. We got Cranky Dog, we got Warrior Streak, and Clavicus. It's a mini raid. A mini raid on it, well, a 72mm scale figure. Yeah, we've got, speaking of paint-a-paloozas and stuff, we are, well, for sure, during when ReaperCon was going to be, there will be tons of live streaming here. Basically, I'm going to try and live stream the whole weekend, which is what I would have done if we were at ReaperCon, just minus the whole streaming thing. Would have actually been there in the hotel doing a Fort Wappel. But what we'll do is during ReaperCon weekend, we'll do a virtual Fort Wappel. But basically about every Saturday or so, which would be tomorrow, we do a lot of, basically a very long stream. As long as I can do it, 7, 8, 9 hours, however long my voice will last, basically. So if folks that have followed, maybe we'll be getting an alert tomorrow for something like that. That could be very fun. And I also have, let me see. Now, it'll be too hard to reach from here. But I've got a bunch of fun Reaper miniatures that we're also going to be working on. Some large-scale things. I've got some sort of in-between size Reaper dragons that I'm kind of setting up for some of my Lord of the Rings, actually. Here, let's get some reflected light in this metal here. So this is some of the, that's Leviathan blue contrast paint mixed with the Maiden Flesh right here. Oh, Vamenqua. And let's see,
Hello,
and Megan.
little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
We welcome in a builder. Is it a builder of the pyramid? Only if there's enough loyalty, you too can be a builder of the pyramid. I believe Nessie was already, I believe you have already attained that status. Oh, and you already, well, you had
Hello,
a...
little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
Musafi, thank you so much for the follow. Gandalf appreciates it, and so do I. Again, that's right there. That's a bit of faded ultramarine now that is mixed with the Leviathan blue contrast paint. Here, we're just going to work into our cloak here, and we're going to get ourselves some, there, look at that. It's kind of semi-translucent, it's a bit of a middle tone, and now the interior of that cape is going to stand out a little more, because you've got essentially a contrast between a muted warm color and a muted cooler color. However, that purple is still got enough warmth in there where that won't stand out too much. We don't want a whole bunch of contrast there and taking you away from the face and the tattoo and all that fun
Hello,
stuff that we
little
did.
hobbits. Spark my ganja.
As we welcome in Skelsey. Hello. Thank you so much for the follow. It's appreciated. Now we need, in our metals here, to get some... Yeah, let's get some pink
Hello,
down
little
here.
hobbits. Spark my ganja.
We got Christofferson. Welcome in. Now to make that pink, we are going to take, again, some of that Vulpes pink. We're going to mix a little bit of the... That is Maggot White from Reaper. So we got ourselves a little bit of a translucent pink here. It's not very watery, but again, it is translucent. And then we're going to mix it, look at that, right into here. Some there, because if it ain't got pink, it ain't metals. Gonna put some of that down here too. Again, pink and purple and green. That when you see those in combination close enough together, they all just look like gray, except not that sort of dead gray that you so often see on non-metallic metals. And what we are working with is an Artisan Guild figure. I'll show you a couple of other Artisan Guild figures. So this one is me. It literally is modeled after me. That's why he is my face cam, because he is me. And it kind of combines everything. Fluorescent paint, object source lighting, freehand. Yes, lots of freehand. Then we have him, and we've got, again, our latest one right there. No, that was actually the first Artisan Guild. This is our latest one here, because it's in my hand. Okay, back to that sort of purple mix here. We're going to go into our metals here looking for... I need to get that just a touch lighter. So I'm going to take some of the... Again, that's some of the Maggot White there. That's another Reaper color. That's better. That is better. And now we also need some green. How are we going to do that? A couple of ways. So this is Reaper Mint Green. And that's some of that Iandan Yellow. And now look at that. We get a semi-translucent green. That's going to also go into our metals here in the form of a bit of reflected light. And you notice it on the palette here, look at how dark that is compared to actual light. But on the miniature, it looks a whole lot lighter because of, again, context. We have so much of that dark already in place. And this is another thing I really love to do. And actually, I started doing this at ReaperCon too. So we're going to go zoink. Now it's just black and white. And you can see we got plenty of shading there. But as I bring it back, watch what happens in the skin tone. Watch what happens. All those greens and the pinks come back. Look at the blue and the pinks and the metal. All that stuff starts to come back. Well, thank you, Skelsey. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Now here is one of the other, and you can actually watch this on my YouTube channel now. This is a previous Twitch session. This was painted in oils. But my next task after finishing this, to see that jungle foliage there, we're going to be adding some of that to our base. And, well, for those of you that are fans of Reaper miniatures, this is also on the YouTube channel. And also more Green Stuff World texture rollers. So very fun. That was a fun exercise. It was, I think, a stream that we did back in April, something like that. But basically, the older streams, I turn those into YouTube videos because, well, even when you're a partner, your videos do still go away after a certain amount of time. So here, this is Wildwood mixed with the Vulpes pink. It gives me sort of a nice dark rich pink that I want to use here in the hair. Get some darks in here. There we go. Also gonna right in here. I need some, even as dark as that seems, I can still go darker. Look at that. I can go much darker down in there. Because I don't want to keep adding highlights because I want those bright highlights to be there on the top of her head. Oh, let's see. Nessie knows. Have your snacks ready. Yes, indeed. Have your snacks ready. And your notebooks, because you never know how many readings from the Book of Wappel there might be. Because Nessie earned himself a glorious reading from the Book of Wappel. All about faded ultramarine, color of colors, paint of paints. Only faded plum is even in the same consideration. Of course, I don't know. I do think that red, green, and yellow, blue, they might actually start to demand some attention as well. Speaking of which, I just noticed an area that is devoid of skin tone that needs some skin tone. And I'm thinking that is right here. So again, this is where that semi-translucent skin, or semi-translucent tone that I can make via this. So again, we got some of the pink, some of our lighter color there. And let's drop this down into this area and just get ourselves some skin tone there. I thought that was the cape, and then I'm looking at that going, no, that's probably more like a right above the clavicle there. That's better. Okay. Problem solved, especially when we get some more darks here. Much better. Much better. Ah, let's see. Moreno painting, reading the Book of Wappel. Okay, so what was it? We had a reading from chapter 5. So we are going to read from the sacred text, Book of Wappel, chapter 6. He who shall not work on the entire figure at once shall never know context. Again, a reading from the sacred Book of Wappel, chapter 6, verse 1. Context, what does that mean? And Di Moreno painting, thank you so much for actually that, because it really gave me a chance to talk about context. Because remember, when we came in, we were just slinging paint all over this. We covered all that primer straight away. And because we worked on the skin tone a little bit, then on this, then on the metals, bit by bit, it's all more cohesive, much more cohesive. So that is what context is all about. And if I had just painted the face, but not done any of this stuff, I never, like these greens here, those greens are specifically designed to make the pink here look more pink. Because we'll do it again. We'll take our color saturation, we're going to get rid of that. Again, now this, and that you can't see the difference, but there's still some shading there, but that's value contrast. Now let's bring in color contrast, and poof, there it is. Green's there, pink's there, color contrast. Green's there, pink's there. Orangey red here, green there. A different not all contrast is just how light you can make it or how dark you can make it. It goes way beyond that. Well beyond that. Segue. Yes, that's what we call in the industry a segue. Now again, this is more that Leviathan blue mixed with a touch of the faded ultramarine. Here, let's lighten that up just a bit.
Hello, little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
Well, thank you so much for the follow, Aria's Granny. I hope that is pronounced at least vaguely correctly. At least somewhat correctly. Feel free to correct me if it was incorrectly pronounced. Now I'm even going to get a little bit of dark into that. Yeah. Here, again, a little touch of a glaze. Again, Leviathan blue, faded ultramarine. There. Boom. So, tones that down. I'm thinking, yes, I'm thinking I need to actually bring back some lighter colors here. I know I toned that down, but I want to lighten that up so they have a reason for that reflected light. Again, it's context. It's all about the context. You will hear me mention that ad nauseum. You can check out my YouTube channel. There are hundreds more videos there. And actually, if you join the Patreon page, there will be many hundreds more. And that's no joke. That is not a joke. Because, let me see if I can get to some of my army paint. Not only do you have, I'm on episode 40 of Painting Darksword. This is 39 right here. So we're going to get into unit painting like this. So this is one of the first series that I did. That's a 5-part series. It takes you from basing all the way through. There's we'll check out this right here. So again, another unit that's on my Patreon page, all that non-metallic metal. Oh look, yellows, freehand, all that sort of stuff. And for again you Reaper folks, we also have Reaper miniatures, and yes, those are Bones miniatures. That is all. That is Bones. That is Bones. All right, and oh, bases here. There we go. So this is another one of my previous series. This is the very latest series. So painting that entire unit. So let's see. Demorano painting as I'm late to the party was all done with contrast paints. I shall go back to my camera here. So basically what you've got, let's pick this out here. So say this color right here, that is your Fire Slayer Flesh. What I've been doing is basically mixing with things like Maiden Flesh or like Maggot White here. And you can see all these kind of middle tone type colors. Basically that's these mixed with these two. So what I'm going to do, because we've got this side over here, let's dive back into this. I'm just going to get my yellow out of the way. We're going to take some of that's Leviathan blue. We're going to combine, look at this, look at what we get. Look at that little combination there. So we get several different colors out of that, but it's also kind of semi-translucent. Here, let's get some of that into our metals here. Now we want to get some pink in there. We just added a bit of that Vulpes pink. It's sort of semi-translucent, right? And look at that. Here's some pink. Once again into our metals. Now over here, let's take Snakebite Leather and look at this nifty, there's our Snakebite Leather. Look at that nifty yellow that we get. Kind of again, a semi-translucent color, because this, while it looks like it covered, it's not covering that completely. And then if I do more of the contrast paint, see, it starts to get a little bit darker there. And look at that. It's almost a bit of a, I just been calling that a dry glaze. Yeah, let's do some more of this. That's what I was kind of leaving the other side of this sort of somewhat completed just in case. We had a whole bunch of new folks and they were wondering, what's all this about with the contrast paint? What the heck do you
Hello,
mean?
little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
Scott Beal, thank you so much for the follow. It is appreciated. Now, let's switch this up again. Let's switch it up again. So we've got kind of a reddish color here. Look at that. We're going to mix some of that. That is, I think, Gore Grunta Fur. Kind of a reddish brown. We are mixing that with the faded ultramarine. And now we get a little different color going here. We're going to get some reflected lights on our metals here. Let's do some of that down here. Okay. We've got a bit of a greenish tone here. That is the Iandin yellow there, and just throw that right there, mixed with some Reaper mint green. And you say, okay, what's the deal with why would you want to throw green over there? Well, because we're going to take some of that straight up mint green, and now that's going to go here. Again, it's all about context. It's all about what is next to what color influences another color, influences the eye, tricks the eye into seeing something else maybe. So here we're just gonna, again, we're gonna take some of that faded ultramarine now. Let's put some of that into our cloak here. And this was done really early on, very wet into wet. It was almost like oil paints. Because the contrast paints, they don't actually dry necessarily very fast. And we basically took advantage of that to be able to do some wet blending. Now here we'll start to throw in some lights on the fur on our cloak here. Let's see if we want to do any more of our reflected light here on this, and that we realize that's all supposed to be metal too. Let's hit some more of our metals here. Now let's get some of that purple. So here we got shyish purple. If we mix it, look at that. As we mix it with the white, look at that nifty semi-translucent purple that we get. Look at that. Oh, let's just get some of that into our metals, because again, what's not more fun in metals than purple? It's relatively dark. It certainly makes this more interesting than just endless shades of, well, brown. Oh, thanks, Scott. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Here, let's go a little bit lighter now. Again, that is the contrast paint mixed with the shyish purple, or the shyish purple contrast paint mixed with some of the maggot white from Reaper and some of the Proacryl white as well. Now, okay, we're doing all this stuff, lots of middle tones, right? And even some lighter tones like this. Well, let's go the other way. We are going to take Leviathan blue here. It's mixed with some of the wildwood to make basically a really deep dark tone. And look at that. Look at the nice rich dark we can do. But contrast paint, people think all you can do is slap them on and they run all over the place. Well, that's not so, because look what I'm doing here. You can see we're drawing in some nice line. That is contrast paint right there. All nifty little fun contrast paint. Bring in some more of our dark shapes over here. Just because. Get some contrast there. Some contrast there. So we've been adding a bunch of lights. Well, let's slap in some darks now. Again, this is the contrast paint, but it's being brushed on instead of just slathered on. It's done in a more organized fashion. And of course, we're using our sable brush this time around, not one of the synthetics, so that the bristles are going to do that little deformation thing we've been talking about. Just something to be aware of. But then that's what you got your quad zero here. Let's go back into some of the maggot white over here, and let's see what kind of shapes we can bring out here in our metals again. So again, we're going to get some lights here. Some more light here. Let's get the top of the edge of that blade here. Same thing down here. So you can see that just it doesn't take long for this to start to emerge. Let's hit our hand. So this is the little bit of that Vulpes pink. It's mixed with some of the maiden flesh. That's the Reaper maiden flesh mixed in with it. Oh, let's see. Calvita asks, what size is that sable brush? That is a 000. That's a 000. Now, if you want to see, if you check out one of the recent sessions, it's the Baratheon Stag Knights. It's a real comparison between these three brushes here. Now let's get the, okay. So the blue handle ones, those are your Cotmans right there. Those are synthetics, but one is a liner brush that's designated by the 222. This one is a spotter brush that's designated by that 111. And then this is a sable. Now the thing is, see that sable brush, see how it kind of deforms like that when I press on it? This brush right here is gonna not quite do that. It's got a little more, I'm pressing on that, but look at it, it's not deforming as much. That's why it's good for getting into recesses and really working on some nice solid, well, lines basically. So we're going to go back into some of our maiden flesh here, and let's start to bring out some of the details in her hand, if possible. Let's see, I don't know, not quite sure what the heck those are supposed to be. Does it really matter? A little bit of faded ultramarine again.
Hello, little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
Pyrrha, or no, there's no H in there, so I would just say Pyrrha. And again, if I ever pronounce a name incorrectly, you just say no, it's pronounced this way, and then I'll try to remember that. It might take me a few times around to recall it each time, but then I'll get it right. Now, again, some bluish green here. Let's work that into our metals again. Say here. Some more of that here. And I'm going to go actually back to that snakebite leather and some of our, what the heck, let's make it even warmer, a little bit of the maiden flesh in there. And then we'll pop in some, not just lighter colors here, but some warmer colors. Remember, it's all about that color contrast, not just value contrast. And since we have some new folks here, it's almost time to go into our black and white mode to show essentially what we mean about that color contrast. So bring those out a little bit, and so again, right here you've got green here, pink, red, green. When the saturation goes away, like so, you don't see that anymore, but now you can start to see, we're starting to see some values here, right? You can see shape, even with the color gone, as we have a draconic visions. Yes, well, you know, when you're as old as Gandalf is, getting your ganja sparked, that is it's not just an occasion, it's a party. So we're back into our lighter sepia tone here, looking to, let's, whatever these little wrappings are here on our Frisbee of Doom, let's do some more of that. And then we're going to go back in, as we have done before. And this is where that kind of liner brush takes center
Hello,
stage.
little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
As we welcome in Jotun Wolf Fenrir. That is that's a handful there. But let's get some darks into this. We've been adding a lot of lights. Now we're back into our darks again, and that is basically wildwood mixed with some of our Leviathan blue to make
Hello,
it dark.
little hobbits. Spark my ganja.
We have Drizzaloo. Thank you so much for the follow. That is appreciated. Obviously, Gandalf appreciates it too. But look at the difference that dark makes. Look at the difference that can make. And then you also have, we got their quad 0 here, so we can go even finer with that. Again, I'm going to orientate this where I can get the best brushstroke possible. Boom. Same here. Let's get some more of our shape back right there. So again, contrast is not just about those big old glazes and stuff. Look at this, is all very controlled. And then I can take that and I can spread it around here. It's like I'm shading with it instead of just doing those big old nasty glazes. Now we are going to take wherever that might have gone. Here it is, our bold titanium white. Let's throw that back out onto the palette somewhere here where we've got it. And let's find ourselves some brighter highlights too, like in the fur, like on our metals. Few areas here. Let's go for sure up here. Set ourselves a nice little edge here. And then I'm going to actually bring back some of the Reaper mint green as well. Now there's some of our, again, that is the maggot white, so that's more of a bluish white. Let's start to, let's see, I'm going to look back at the other side here to make sure we're not getting too light with this, because again, context is everything. How light did we go with that? You can see we've got lots of colors mixed in, lots of blues and greens and everything else. We got our tattoo design. Maybe we'll throw in some more. Let's do that. What the heck? Let's just play with a tattoo here. So this is our Leviathan blue. Using it sort of like, oh, and this is the other thing. I was trying to basically find a substitute for things like blue liner, because for folks in Europe and Australia, it's really hard to get the Reaper paints. Oh, let's see. I see value. It's Seth Rogen, too. Oh, thanks, Draconic. I appreciate that. So, Draconic is stopping in to say hi before you start working on your wedding rings. Well, that sounds pretty wild. That sounds very cool. Here, let's do some kind of tattooy type thing here on her arm. And now just having tried that other pattern, so here we got a little bit of that swirl there. Try and make that so you can see it. And then we'll bring this over like so. And then another swirl that kind of, basically the one swirl feeds into the next swirl and so on and so forth. There's another one of our swirls again. Kind of a weird sort of trapezoid shapes here. And again, another swirl that sort of cuts into that swirl. There you go. And another one that cuts into that. Like so. And then we got our skin tone that we can, look, it's sitting right here. Some of that pink here. I'm going to get a little touch of my yellow so it's not too pink. And then we can sort of do a bit of a glaze over that tattoo, and now it looks more subdermal, right? There's some more. Just kind of tones that down, but stays. And this is, again, that was basically Leviathan blue contrast paint. Now we've got sort of a mix of, again, some of the Reaper clears and said contrast paint. Now we've got ourselves a little bit of a tattoo right there. Let's see. Got the design mostly figured until 2.5D them. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. I do appreciate that. And again, so we're looking at basically 3 hours and 25 minutes here. And this has gone from 0 paint. So here, let's find something that has, okay, this primer. That's what this was 3.5 hours ago. And as you can see, this is kind of a big figure here. So actually what I'm going to do is just do a couple more little do thingies on her. Let's try another little bit of tattoo-ish type stuff. Maybe over here. Maybe over here, and see what we can do with this. So again, we'll start out with that little bit of a swirl there. Make ourselves a little trapezoid around that. And then that swirl kind of follows in from that swirl, goes up over the top like this. Another little semi-trapezoid, and then back to another swirl here. Like that. And then another sort of trapezoid emerges from that, and then into another little bit of a swirl here. We'll keep going. I mean, we could do the entire arm if we wanted to. I mean, here, let's have this continue up here. Just gonna pull away. There's a little bit of a there. The palette, once it gets to be used this much, then you sort of get some little burrs that kind of accumulate in the palette. Okay, again, some more of our darker tone here. Continue this all the way down to here. And then go back to our little bit of a glazy type color here. And again, being contrast paint. Hey, it's Thunderdome Drew. How are you doing? We're actually playing with the contrast paints. This all, well, I don't know what percentage of this you would say is contrast paints, but at least a good 40% of it is contrast paints. And that's what we're using right now is a little bit of mix of that has Maiden Flesh from Reaper, a little bit of the Vulpus Pink, and actually some of the Gore Grunta Flesh. So yeah, using contrast paints, but not like contrast paints. We're painting tattoos with contrast paints. We painted skin tone, we painted fur, we painted metals. We done all that stuff with contrast paints. So we've definitely done some finger painting here. That's for sure. Now, you know what I'm going to do is actually going to get some of that Maiden Flesh. Let's see if I can't, like we did over here, where we got some of those little shapes within the tattoo. Let's do that right here. Ah, that's better. There we go. That's more fun. That is way more fun than just a big old chest. So look at that. Yeah, that makes that tattoo shape look more interesting. We are going to do a similar thing right over here. And we're going to put some more of those, see those dots in there, just like what we've got here. We'll try and organize those dots a little bit more. See if we can't do the same thing right in there. So now we got some tattoos all over now. And sometimes you stop. You say, you know, I could do more, and then you say, nah, sometimes more is just less. And sometimes less is less. It's kind of, that's what we try and, again, establish a context for everything, because it'll be easier to know when you, oh man, I shouldn't keep going with that, when you've actually done something. Like when we did our metals here, we did our greens over here, we knew just how light or dark we could go, how much pink or purple we can go. Like the nose here, maybe a touch lighter there, maybe even a touch lighter on her upper lip here. Right here. And I also want to change the shape of that slightly. Now I'm going to go back the other way. I got some of the Vulpes pink and Shyish purple mixed together. Can you see that? Yeah, okay. Just to make sure that was on camera for you. There we go. Restored that, and now I see. I want her eyebrow to be a little more prominent there. We're also going to, I think, throw some darks into this. Yeah, okay. Somehow that eyebrow just kind of got lost there. That's better. Oh, let's see if we can't do some more stuff on these little cuts in her cloak here for whatever reason. Again, if I don't like it, I'm just, see, finger painting. You just use your finger, get rid of it, give it the finger. We have Groot. We got ourselves a Groot. How are you doing? Okay, there we go. That's Wildwood mixed with our Leviathan to give us a nice, rich, dark color. Bam. Like so. And I think some of these guys here, yeah. We're going to take some of that. We're going to mix it with our beaded ultramarine here. And let's get ourselves a nice, yeah, those kind of went from really light to just like no shading way too fast. Now they got some shading on them. That makes me happier. We also need to get some kind of shading down here because we haven't done much with that since the beginning. And I'm just gonna hit that with some glazes. And yes, that's me mixing water with the contrast paint to thin it down. Because of the way I'm using it, because I'm not just slapping it over the whole thing. I don't necessarily need that super expensive contrast medium. I did experiment with it to see if I can turn other paints into a contrast medium or a contrast style paint, but it seemed like making something way more complex than it really needed to be. Getting some more darks in our, yeah, let's do that here too. Again, that's the Wildwood and Leviathan blue together, making ourselves a little bit of a dark here. Just pull some of that away here. All right. Hey, we got Decho. We need a narrative tutorial with your dulcet tones by More Than Freehand. I tell you what, it was what we did. We did work in some freehand. I was gonna say, well, we didn't do freehand here, but we kind of did. I mean, Tattoos count as freehand. In fact, we're gonna make these even a little bit more subdermal here. There we go. Again, just taking some of the contrast paint that's mixed with some of our maiden flesh. Now, let's see, tired as hell, but still wanting to make more bashes. Speaking of that, that's going to be me. Actually, I still have to finish off that tutorial. Here we go. Let's just tone some of that down. There we go. It's the advantage of using the contrast paint in this way, because I don't have to worry about some kind of glaze going astray. But look at that nifty gray that we've got here. We do need some secondary lights in here, though, and we're going to do that right now. Again, we can make it lighter. It's like a glaze, except we don't have watery paint running around all over the freaking place. Again, a little more. Set up some contrast back here. Some reflected light back here. Maybe even grab some of that bluish green and set that back here. It's kind of like what we did here on the interior of that flag. Let's get some of that back here. There we go. There's a little bit of our green. The whole Frazetta thing going on. Until we need some lighter green, I think. Maybe on this side. Like so. Yeah, there we go. Yep. Now I might even drop a touch of that here. Some more reflected light there, and then we'll get some of it on our cloak here. Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I just that's that design way over there on the left-hand side. I never played with this kind of a tattoo design before, so I wanted to see what that would do. And that was really fun. That was a blast. Now I've done it, let's see, in much smaller fashion. Let's see which yeah. So you can see we've done some of that on these guys here. Those are the kind of typical patterns that I do, more of the swirly stuff like that. I think we've got some on this guy as well. Aha. There we go. So that's kind of typical of what I've done on figures before, but I wanted to try out something new. And that was a fun new design, and it took a while to figure out how that design kind of worked out, but now it's kind of in the brain, so I think I can replicate that more on some future stuff. So let us take some of our Leviathan blue here, mix it with this green. That's okay. I also want to get some more of that mint green. Actually, no. I'm going to look for some sky blue here. Ah, this is what I'm looking for. A little bit of this turquoise. If I had a Kalian green, the contrast paint, basically I could make this real easy, but I just don't have that available right now. I don't know where I put it. It was one of the contrast paints that I got. I think I got 11 of them to start out with, maybe 12. I think it was 11. There. That's what it needed. Just needs this little touch of the sky blue in there. And that's exactly what a Kalian green would have done for me. I don't have it. All I would have to do is take a Kalian green and mix it with white. Now I do have actually an army painting series. It's a 5-part series on the Patreon page, and it's done entirely in contrast paint, just like what I did here. So I have actually done an entire painting series done with this method, a whole army painting series. Ironically enough, it was some really ancient classic GW Corn Berserkers that it could be for 40k or fantasy. Yeah, those went back a long ways. All right, let's get a little. Look at that. Again, it's that little bit of nice little color transition there. Let's get some more of that. Boy, I really wish I had the Kilian green because that makes such a fun color. Actually, it's really good for a plasma glow too. That Achillean green, and you mix it sort of with some of these lighter colors. And let's get a touch of that reflected into our metals right here. Let's lighten it up a touch. There we go. Very nice. Let's set that edge a little here more. Let's get some of that same sky blue over on this side for sure.